My mother-in-law deliberately infected my 1-year-old daughter with chickenpox. I am livid, but she doesn't think it's a big deal. I can hardly type this out because thinking about it makes me so angry. Earlier this year, my husband 31M and I, 27F, decided to spend Christmas with his family for the first time since my daughter was born last September. Since they live 12 hours away, we decided to stay for a few weeks before Christmas so they could spend loads of time with Annie, who is 13 months. We arrived early like we planned and everything was great. I have had a few disagreements with my mother-in-law Trish, 56F, who in the past has criticized my parenting style. She criticized me for using disposable diapers, buying baby food from the supermarket, and not raising Annie as an organic baby. But regarding the trip, everything seemed great. After a day or two settling in, my husband and I decided to pick up a few gifts from a mall around an hour away before the last-minute rush kicked in. My father-in-law 60M tagged along. Trish said she was happy to take care of Annie. We got back a few hours later and Annie was down for a nap on a blanket that I didn't recognize. Trish said one of her friends dropped by and gave it as an early Christmas gift. It looked pretty old and worn, but I figured one of her hippie friends was just recycling it. The next 2 weeks were fine, aside from Trish making a point to prepare meals for Annie from scratch. I mentioned this to my husband, and he said to just let her be. Annie mostly mushed the food that Trish gave her with her hands / threw the bowls on the floor, as she's been doing that at the moment. Trish said it would take her a while to get used to nutritious meals, and I was getting sick of her meddling, but it was only for a few weeks. So for the sake of the holidays, I let it slide. The day after Christmas, Annie was really unsettled and wouldn't stop fidgeting and crying. I took her temperature and she had a fever, so I kept an eye on her for the next few days, and thankfully it started to go down. This morning, she started to get a rash and blisters on her arms and legs, and I freaked out. I was packing a bag to drive to see a doctor when Trish asked me where I was going. I told her Annie had a rash and I was taking her to see a doctor. She got a weird, smug smile on her face and told me there was nothing to worry about. When I asked her what she was talking about, she said without even looking at Annie that what she had was just chickenpox. I asked her how she could possibly know that, and she casually admitted one of her friend's grandkids had chickenpox a few weeks ago, so she asked them to wipe a blanket over the child's arms, legs, and face and bring it to her house. At this point, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, so I asked if that blanket was the gift Annie was sleeping on, and she said it was, and I lost my crap. To be honest, I don't really remember what I said, because I was up for most of the night for 2 days checking on Annie, and I just unleashed on Trish asking what the F was wrong with her. My husband and father-in-law came to try and calm things down, and Trish dug in her heels and said chickenpox was the best and most natural thing for Annie to build up her immunity. But I already have a vaccination schedule in place with my pediatrician, and she was booked in to get immunized for chickenpox at 18 months. We drove to see the doctor, and he confirmed that she had it. He said I'll have to cut Annie's nails short and might have to tape socks on her hands while she sleeps because kids so young can scratch until they bleed, and that will leave scars. On the drive back, my husband started making excuses for Trish, that she was only doing what she thought was best. I couldn't believe he was defending her, and we fought most of the way home until I told him to stop talking to me. Annie's been scratching like crazy, and I just had to tape socks over her hands. Trish tried to talk to me when we got back, and I told her to get out of my sight. We were meant to stay until Wednesday, but I just finished packing up our stuff so we can leave first thing in the morning. I am so angry I can't even think. Whenever I hear Trish moving around in the kitchen, my heart starts beating faster, and I feel like going out there and grabbing her by the hair. I don't ever want to see her again or let my daughter see her again. What can I say to make her and my husband realize the enormity of what she's done? I don't think I can speak coherently to their faces until Annie gets better. Then in the comments section, OP was asked why her daughter wasn't vaccinated for chickenpox and said, she is up to date on her vaccination schedule. She was vaccinated for measles a month ago and booked in to get the chickenpox vaccine at 18 months old, as normal. Then one user commented and said, if someone did this to my child, deliberately infecting them with a disease without discussing it with me, with the malicious intent of undermining my parenting to teach me a lesson, they would never see my child for extended periods or unsupervised ever again. And finally, user 2 commented and said, your husband better step up and act like a father and stop acting like a son. Update, February 2nd. Thank you to everyone for your comments, inbox messages, and advice after my original post. I read all the comments and messages, and they genuinely helped, especially the home remedies on how to stop itching. Now, onto the update. I didn't think it would be possible, but things got worse. I got up first thing next morning and started packing our stuff into the car. Once I opened it up, I kept the keys in my pocket since I was going in and out. Usually we use Jack's set and leave mine in my bag. While I was packing, he sat in the kitchen with Trish and my father-in-law 6 p.m. and chatted and had coffee like nothing was wrong. Annie was mercifully still asleep, so I'd just gently belted her in and closed her door when Jack came out and asked if I had everything. I said we were good to go as soon as he was. He said okay and calmly took out his key set and centrally locked the car, locking Annie in. I asked him what the hell he was doing, and he said we wouldn't be leaving until I apologized to Trish. I think I was stunned into silence because he then took the chance to rehash what he said the previous day, that Trish thought she was doing what was best, that chickenpox doesn't kill you, and that I was making a bigger deal out of this than I needed to, and making Trish feel bad. Yes, making her feel bad. All the comments from my last post were swirling around in my head, and I told him he needs to stop being a son and start being a father. He screwed up his face and said he would always be Trish's son, and that was the point, that nobody should speak to his mother the way I had the day before, and I needed to apologize to clear the air. And I felt like I had entered some kind of weird Twilight Zone where I had accidentally married a 9-year-old instead of an adult man. So I just asked him to open the car so we could leave. He repeatedly refused, then walked back inside and said he would see me in there when I was acting more reasonable. And you can probably guess what happened next. I'd left my bag on the passenger seat, so he probably assumed my keys were in there. Nope. I waited 30 seconds, then just hopped into the car and drove away. My phone blew up with a million calls from him, Trish, and my father-in-law. Eventually, my mom, dad, and my sister Jess, who I'm super close with, called as well. And I'd briefly texted Jess about what was happening the day before, but she was stunned to get the full blow-by-blow. By the time I was on the open road, I asked her to phone Jack and tell him he could walk home for all I care. Once she heard my side of the story and not Jack's, which was apparently that I had gone crazy, frightened Trish, snatched Annie, and sped away, she seemed to calm down. Mom, Dad, and Jess offered to start driving and meet me halfway so I could switch with one of them and wouldn't have to drive the full 12 hours by myself in one day. I was so grateful to see them that I pretty much broke down in a truck stop parking lot while I blubbered that I loved them. They all took turns driving while I had a rest, and it was super reassuring to talk it over and hear that Trish and Jack are the unreasonable ones. Once we got back, I stayed at my parents' overnight, and they said I could stay as long as I needed. The next few days were fairly tense. I was up most of the night making sure Annie didn't scratch, which she did anyway somehow, and it seemed like she just cried and cried and cried until she was exhausted. She has 5 scars on her face and a few others on her arms from scratching. I know appearances shouldn't matter, but I'm so angry that her skin is marked for life now over some stupid bullcrap. This whole thing is just something I never expected to happen. I answered one of Jack's calls only to have him start a rant that he didn't recognize the person I had become, so I hung up on him. He was due to come back for the start of the work year, which I wasn't looking forward to, but I figured we could make it work as long as Trish was 12 hours away. Then at like 11 p.m. one night, I got a very short informal text message from my father-in-law via Jack's phone saying Trish had come down with shingles and was in the emergency room, that Jack was staying there to care for her, and that he would work from their house remotely once the year started back up. Jack's been there for the past few weeks tending to Mama's every whim, and I'm sure she's put on an Oscar-worthy performance of having one foot in the grave. And according to Google, it should be any day now that her painful, crusty pustules go gently into that sweet night. A few weeks ago, I was honestly so tired and overwhelmed and in disbelief that I didn't know what to do. Now, I'm back at home with people who actually care about me, and I think I'm starting to realize how lucky I am to see this weird relationship with his mommy this early on. The fact that he cares more about Trish than his own daughter speaks volumes. When he eventually comes back, I think we'll have to have a serious talk about our future together. Now, here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "He locked your daughter in the car. Holy crap, and assumed you wouldn't be able to get her out? I mean, that was why he locked her in, to threaten you. Holy crap. Good on you for dipping out after that. Whatever happens with your marriage moving forward, you seem to have your parenting priorities straight. Good luck, and I hope Annie feels better soon." Then user 2 commented and said, "Yeah, this. He locked a sick baby in the car. Kudos to OP for handling that with a cool head, because I would have lost my crap." Then user 3 replied and said, "This is effing terrifying behavior out of him. That poor baby is going to grow up with that as a father." And finally, user 4 commented and said, "You only get shingles if you've had chickenpox. The new vaccine prevents it. Rather ironic. I'd get divorce papers served before Mummy Dearest decides your daughter should become a breatharian or join Scientology. Did I pronounce that right? Breatharian? I don't know. I've never seen that word before. But about the story. Hold on, wait. Oh my god! I'm not OP, and I was frustrated reading this. The fact that he locked the car, she had, like, the response of just blinking like, did you just do that? Did my husband just make a heel turn against me? There's another wrestling reference for you guys. But just, you know what? I don't even blame OP for wanting to drive away. I just, her child, in a sense, was in danger, and she wanted to remove herself and the kid from the danger. And the danger was the dad and the dad's side of the family, especially Trish. I don't know if hubby and OP are gonna get a divorce. OP never said the word outright. I think it only shows up like once in this story. But if this definitely feels like strike 1, 2, and 3 at the very minimum, and if he comes home and doubles down after like a long talk, well then maybe OP needs to get them papers served, because that is, goodness. Good luck to her. Next story. Story number 2. Will I be the a-hole if I asked someone who I thought was my friend why only my boyfriend was invited to their wedding? So, for context, I, 23F, have known this guy. 24M, I'll call him Roger, for 6 years now. He and I were put into a musical ensemble together our first year of college, and we stayed in it for 4 years. This group is also where I met my boyfriend, 24M, and where my boyfriend met Roger also. There were a couple of other guys in the group, and we all were and have remained pretty good friends, especially since the other 4, including my boyfriend, are in a band together that they continued after college. I wasn't excluded from this group, I just really wasn't interested in the time commitment, so I declined to join when they started out. They've actually become pretty well known in our local scene, and they are a really talented group. Anyways, on to the current situation. Roger has been with his fiancée 22F since before I met him, and when she came to the same school we were in, all the rest of us in the group became pretty friendly with her. I wouldn't really consider her a friend, we have no beef as far as I'm aware, we just aren't really close, and we only really talk at shows. I do like her though, and we always make a point of saying hi to each other when we see each other and have a friendly chit-chat. So, my boyfriend and I have known these guys literally the same amount of time, that we've spent all of college with Roger seeing each other at least twice a week for this group, although it was usually much more, and we still hang out with them sometimes outside of the band scene. So, Roger is getting married to his fiancée this summer. I of course wished them both congratulations when I heard the news of their engagement. A couple of months ago, we got the save the date in the mail. It was addressed to only my boyfriend, which I thought was a bit odd, but I thought it was only to save the date, so I didn't really think much of it, and I put it on the fridge. Well, last week, the wedding invite came. It was again addressed to just my boyfriend. We opened it, and there was no indication of even a +1 or anything, which I really didn't think I should be a +1 for my boyfriend. I feel I should be invited on my own merit. My boyfriend said maybe they just addressed it to him because we live together, but like, that's exactly my point. We live together, so if it's for both of us, it should be addressed to both of us. Otherwise, I assume mail addressed to him is his. I'm honestly incredibly hurt by this. I guess it's fine if they don't really see us as friends, but I still feel like the fact that they know my boyfriend and I both live here, and they know I'm expecting to be invited, seeing as everyone else from this old group got an invite, makes this feel like a real punch in the gut. So I guess my question is actually twofold, actually. Am I the a-hole for being offended by this in the first place? And will I be the a-hole if I asked them why I wasn't invited? Update. Hi everyone, this is a throwaway account. I used it previously to ask about this situation on Am I the A-hole a couple of months back, but as the event is approaching, my fiancé is starting to make me question if I'm actually reading this situation right, and I would just really like to get some other takes on the situation. So, to summarize my previous post, we have friends, unsure on that one, getting married this weekend, and the question of my last post was about the fact that my name was not on the invitation that was sent to my fiancé in my apartment. My fiancé and I met each other at the same time as we met the groom, and we got together about a year and some change later. We worked pretty closely in a musical group throughout school, and then my fiancé and the other members of that group decided to continue and form their own band. I was not excluded from this, I was just not particularly interested in the time commitment, and I don't regret that decision because they are some busy MFers. But being that my fiancé and I are still together, I still see the groom and his bride-to-be quite often. We've never had any beef as far as I know, and we always have friendly conversations and say hello to each other, like each other's stuff on Instagram and whatnot. So, given the background of our relationship and the fact that my fiance and I have lived together for 3 years and they sent the invitation to the apartment that we share, the fact that my name was not on the invitation says to me that I am not invited. My fiance kept trying to say like, oh, maybe they didn't know they were supposed to put your name on it, or insisting it was a mistake because someone else wrote the invites, to which I told them that they would have written the invites based on the names they were given. I asked if I would be the a-hole if I asked them why I wasn't invited, to which I was told I would be, and I was probably right that I wasn't invited, though others did agree on how insanely rude it was of them. I accepted the answer, and while I still feel the whole thing was rude, I've let it go, and I don't plan to talk badly about them, or to them, or cause any drama, because it's up to them who's at their wedding. They won't be at mine. My fiance accepted I was right about the situation after another person from this group also recently sent out the save the date for his wedding, and I pointed out to him a month before we'd received an invite from one of my fiance's friends that I'd only met a couple of times, and both of our names were on the invite. But I digress. The purpose for today's post is that the wedding is this weekend. For some reason, my fiance keeps asking me if I'm going. Apparently, he asked the groom and he was told verbally that I am invited. But given the fact that my name was not on the invitation, nor was it on the save the date that we received earlier, I really just can't go off of that as enough evidence that I am welcome there. I really believe that if I was invited after my fiance asked why my name wasn't on the invitation, one of them should have reached out directly to me if they are actually expecting me to show up. But they haven't, and for some reason, my fiance believes that they're expecting me to be there, and he keeps saying he doesn't want to have to explain why I'm not there, and I keep telling them there isn't anything to explain. I wasn't invited. But here's where I'm conflicted. I truly do not want to start drama surrounding their wedding. I respect their decision not to invite me if that's how they want their day to be. I don't think anyone should ever have to invite somebody to their wedding that they don't want to. But I am also fully aware that there are going to be several people there who are close to my fiance and I as a couple. We're going to wonder why I am not there, and it may cause a fuss if anyone asks the bride and groom directly, which I realize may come off as main character syndrome. I don't really think people will be that concerned about where I am, but my fiance and I go everywhere together, so my absence will definitely be noticed by our friends, and some of them aren't good at knowing when to just leave things be, and so I genuinely have no idea what to do here. Here are the options that I see right now. 1. Take my fiance's word for it that they do want me there despite everything saying the opposite and show up, and risk being unwelcome and possibly upsetting them on their wedding day. 2. Don't go, come up with a fake story for my fiance to tell everybody so that nobody will try to go poking for gossip. And 3. Don't go. Tell my fiance to either just state the truth, that I wasn't invited, or he can come up with a story on his own if he's not comfortable with that. I'm leaning towards option 3, which honestly does feel kind of petty, and my reasoning is that if they didn't want people to ask why I'm not there, they should have invited me to their wedding, which definitely is a bit petty. But I just don't see why I should lie for them when they don't even respect me as my fiance's long-term partner who they have spent many years getting to know, let alone as a friend to them. So, what do you guys think? Is there another option here where I don't feel like I'm being a doormat while also avoiding coming across as an a-hole? Or is this one of those situations where I can really only have the high ground if I cover for them because it's their wedding day? Any thoughts and advice welcome, please and thank you. And feel free to ask any clarifying questions if anything doesn't make sense or if it seems like anything is missing. Also, there is one detail I couldn't quite figure out where to fit in here. But when we initially received the invitation, the second envelope for their wedding that was addressed to just my fiance, I spoke to a friend of mine about it who vaguely knows who the couple is, because I wanted to ask someone who couldn't bring it up to them if I was overreacting. And she ended up telling me last month that she found out a different friend of hers who was really good friends with the bride all through school and thought that they were still friends, was also not invited. I don't know if that makes much of a difference in the overall take of the situation, but it does seem relevant. Edit. If you aren't going to read the post, don't comment. I wanted to ask them for clarification, but since I've never been in this position before, I wanted to ask others who may have more experience with weddings how I should ask. Everyone said that I would be an absolute a-hole for even considering asking as it's their wedding, and it is obvious I'm not invited, and putting them in that position to have to tell me that to my face would be wrong. Instead of getting mad at me for asking for advice on handling this situation, you should have joined in the first time I asked, and then maybe the reaction you would have received would demonstrate to you why I thought it was inappropriate to ask. Edit number 2. Thank you to everyone who had actual advice and helped me figure out the right decision to me. And to everyone who's being super condescending about me not asking them, how would you feel if you didn't invite somebody to your wedding and then they confronted you about it? I get you should be upfront with them, but some people just don't want to risk the drama, and I guess that's fine too. It's their day. It's not really my place to kick up a fuss about it. If it turns out it was a mistake, then they can explain to me that, and we can laugh about it and move on. But if I am in fact right, it would be really crappy for them to make a fuss about it when the day has nothing to do with me. This isn't about this generation is too scared to talk to people. It's actually about having common courtesy to realize when it is appropriate to make a situation about me and when it is not. This is one of those situations where it is not. So I wanted to know the best way to make sure I uphold the fact that I don't want to be a source of drama for them surrounding their wedding. I did get a lot of good perspectives about possible mistakes that could have happened here, and I'm super happy to accept that as a reality if they explain that to me. But for right now, I'm just going to quietly accept the situation as is and find something fun to do this weekend instead. Update. August 19th. Hi everybody, this is not a very interesting update, but several people asked for one, so I thought I would just explain how things went yesterday. So, first of all, I'm very glad I didn't go. My fiancé was quite unhappy when he came home from the wedding and told me I was onto something. Turns out, I was not the only partner that was missing, but my fiancé is still a bit confused by the whole thing because it struck him as really weird who didn't have their partners there. Plenty of people did ask about me and where I was, and my fiancé just kind of generically told them I couldn't make it. But the bride and the groom did not ask about me, though the groom came up to my fiancé and said something about, "Can't wait for your wedding," which is what made him realize I was right about the whole thing. None of the bridal party, many of whom we know well, asked about me, which also stood out to him considering how many of the guests did. One of the things that strikes me as odd is that my fiancé confirmed there was no designated seat for me, but there were a lot of empty seats, which leads me to wonder if they knew how entirely confusing and weird this was, and they were preparing for people's spouses that weren't invited to show up and play it off by having a seat available. I don't know. So that's pretty much it. The whole thing honestly feels even more confusing after the wedding, but I do at least think it's pretty clear I was right and made the right decision in not going. No real drama happened, and I'm not going to really bother to try and find out more from them or from anyone else. But it is disappointing to say the least. My fiancé is pretty disappointed too to find out how little these friends respect not just me as a person, but me as his partner. But that's just how it goes sometimes, I guess. I really just wish they would have been direct, even if the reason they gave was a lie that I wasn't invited. I would have understood if they said it was a matter of numbers, but the way they went about this just seems so pathetic and cowardly to me. But it appears as if we weren't the only long-term couple they did this to, so I think it says a lot more about them than it does about me. Thanks to everyone who gave advice and offered different perspectives. I'm super thankful I posted here because you guys really helped me feel confident in my read on the situation, and you all helped me make the right decision to avoid the most drama or embarrassment. Then in the comment section, OP elaborated on if the groom asked for her and said, "He didn't ask where I was. He said to my fiancé he was excited for our wedding, but did not ask about me, and no one in the bridal party asked him about me, even though plenty of our other friends did, which leads me to believe they all knew I wasn't invited. If he had asked where I was before or after making that comment, then I think it could be interpreted the way you're suggesting, but he did not ask about me at all, just made a comment about expecting an invitation to our wedding, even though I wasn't there at his, and he didn't seem to think that was strange." Edit. We just got engaged at the end of June, by the way, so we have not set a date yet. It's not as though they received an invitation to ours already, but he expects to be at ours even though he and his wife did not deem me worthy enough to be at theirs. Then some user said that OP's fiancé sees the best in people, and that is why he went to the wedding. Then OP replied and said, "He is, and he does. It's something I love about him, but I do feel sad that he had to go and see for himself. I imagine it was a bit more hurtful to him to realize it then than if he had accepted it before and chosen to stay home. I don't fault him for going, and I understand why he would think they wouldn't do this. I also was surprised. And on the other hand, if this was just some major etiquette blunder and they would have asked about me, then the misunderstanding could have been explained there, and it would have been harder to clear if we'd both skipped it. But at least now we both know these aren't people who respect us, and we can move forward accordingly." Then OP replied to another comment that said that only women were excluded, and maybe it's because they were too pretty. I suppose that's a thought. That didn't occur to me. The partners that my fiancé said were not there are very pretty in my opinion, though none of us look anything like the bride. Then OP replied to a similar comment and said, I can't confirm this because it didn't occur to me to ask my fiance, but all of the names he listed of people that were missing that he expected would have been invited with their partners were girlfriends. I'm probably going to ask others about it next time I see them just to find out if they had the same questions about the situation as I did. But like I said, I really don't care anymore because I accepted the situation months ago when we got the invite, so I'm not going to confront the couple. But I would at least like to find out how it appeared to the other not invited partners. So, we didn't get a clear-cut answer here, but it is a little odd and unusual, and then he goes up to OP's fiance and says, hey bro, can't wait to go to your wedding. All right, bye. And I'm like, what? The audacity? The stupidity, maybe? Maybe they just have like a really horrible relationship where she's incredibly jealous of other women and he's like, babe, we can't have women here because I can't control myself or something like that. I'm sure there's a story like that out there. But I do respect OP for, being mature enough and also asking around and just saying like, hey, this isn't my wedding. They're allowed to invite whoever they want or whoever they don't want to invite. And that's fine. I'm not going to cause drama. I'm not going to make this about me. I'm not going to put them in that situation. And also, she didn't mention it outright, but the hubby's in a band with the guy. So, that also might create a rift. But anyway, that's their choice. That's their decision. And now they're not invited to OP's wedding. And if they act surprised and confused and don't know why they're not invited, then they are grade A idiots. Anyway, next story. Story number 3. Am I the a-hole for uninviting my adoptive brothers from my wedding after they said they don't see me as family? I am a 32-year-old man, and I'm getting married to my longtime girlfriend soon. What should be one of the happiest moments of my life has turned into a heartbreaking ordeal because of a deepening rift within my family. To give you some background, I'm my parents' biological son, and when I was 12, they adopted 2 boys who were biological siblings, Jack, who was 8, and Liam, who was 5. From the very beginning, it was clear things were going to be tough. Jack came with some behavioral issues that were very severe due to some intense trauma. I'll spare the details, but it was significant. And I tried my hardest to be understanding, but living with him was nothing short of exhausting. His outbursts were constant, and I often felt like I was walking on eggshells, terrified of setting him off. As we grew older, I continued to try to be there for Jack, despite everything. A few years ago, Jack fell into a devastating drug addiction. I stood by him through his darkest moments, supporting him through rehab and doing everything I could to help him get back on his feet. It was draining and heartbreaking, but I did it because I loved him and believed that despite our challenges, we were still brothers. Liam, on the other hand, was always easier to get along with, and I formed a closer bond with him. But even so, I always felt like an outsider. Jack and Liam's bond as biological siblings was undeniable, and I never quite felt like I was truly a part of it. It was like I was always on the edge, looking in, trying to be included, but never fully accepted. The situation came to a head recently at a Sunday dinner at my parents' house. My son was working on his summer homework, which involved creating a family tree. He innocently asked Jack if he wanted to be included, and Jack just flat out said no. He didn't want to be a part of it because, in his exact words, "We're not real brothers." And he said it so casually, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, with no regard for how much it would cut me to the core. I was utterly stunned, but what shattered me even more was that Liam, who I've always felt closer to, just sat there in silence. He didn't say a word. He didn't defend me or even acknowledge how hurtful Jack's words were. He just let it happen. I've tried so hard to be supportive of both of them, especially Jack, despite the endless challenges. So for Jack to say that, and for Liam to do nothing, felt like a gut punch. It was as if they were both telling me in no uncertain terms that I was never truly part of their family. In my pain and frustration, I decided to uninvite both Jack and Liam for my wedding. My fiance has been nothing but supportive of my decision, but my parents are furious. They've made it clear that if Jack and Liam aren't invited, they won't attend either. It feels like history is repeating itself, with my parents once again prioritizing Jack over me, no matter how much it hurts me. I'm absolutely heartbroken that my parents would choose to miss my wedding rather than support me in this. I know Jack has been through a lot, but I've done everything I can to be there for him and for Liam, despite all of the heartache. And now I feel like I'm the one being punished for finally standing up for myself and setting some boundaries. So, am I the a-hole for uninviting my brothers after they said they don't see me as family, even if it means my parents won't come to my wedding? Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Not the a-hole. Liam and Jack have been in your family for 20 years. If you all aren't family by now, what the F are you?" And I have a major issue with your parents. They're definitely the a-holes in all of this. The minute Jack said that to your son, they should have spoken up and defended you. The fact that they let him get away with it and are now saying they won't attend your wedding is bullcrap. I would tell them to not bother coming to your wedding and that you hope they'll be happy with their 2 sons. Then I would take my son and go full no contact with them. Honestly, I've considered going no contact with them in the past, but I've never had the guts to genuinely do it. I think my life would have been better off if I did it a long time ago. Then user 2 commented and said, "It's kind of a guilt complex thing for adoptive parents. You hear so many horrible stories about biological kids being prioritized over adopted kids, and that results in an overcompensation. Like, you have your biological parents, you should be grateful. He had it so much worse, so we gotta make it up for him, even though they didn't cause the so much part. And the key to it is to treat your kids equal. If one does accomplish something, he gets a compliment. If he misbehaves, he gets a consequence. Despite all the favoring, he still got drug addicted. So, their game plan failed." I don't blame them or him for his drug addiction. Jack and Liam had truly horrible things happen to them both as children. Stuff I won't get into here. But you can understand it was the type of stuff that leaves you lifelong scars, even with the buttload of therapy they've gone through. One time, Jack spoke to me about how when he's high on drugs, it's the only time in his entire life where he doesn't constantly remember, and the only time he ever feels at peace. Obviously, I shouldn't be the one who is constantly picking up the pieces of him, but I can 100% understand why he got into drugs. He's still an a-hole, though. Then user 3 commented and said, "Also, OP didn't say anything about Liam being part of the family either, and maybe Liam doesn't even know where he stands with OP. I think this is worth OP having a one-on-one conversation with Liam." I've always been closer to Liam than Jack, and to be clear, I always considered them both my brothers. I considered Jack a pain in the ass, but still didn't think anything less than brother of him. Otherwise, I wouldn't have kept supporting him. Then OP elaborated on why his son was asking the brothers about the family tree and said, "Because he's 5 and just wanted to show off what he was doing. I've never said anything to plant an idea that they aren't my brothers. He doesn't even know that they're adopted. Not because it's something we hide, but just because it's something that we don't ever really discuss as a family. And add aunts and uncles to the family tree was an optional extension. And he said it in a way of, come and help me add you in if you want to be, and not a, you don't deserve to be in the tree kind of way. You're honestly clasping at straws here. I have no issue with someone labeling me the a-hole, but don't just make up context to decide it. Update. I'm honestly still reeling from everything that's gone down since my last post. First off, thank you to everyone who took the time to comment. I've read through all of your advice, and it has been a lifeline. But buckle up, because things have taken a wild turn. After hearing from so many of you, I decided I needed to speak to Liam. We met at a pub, and I just laid it all out there. How hurt I was that he didn't say anything after Jack made that awful comment about not being real brothers. I was half expecting him to defend himself, but what I got was something entirely different. Liam confessed that he's been living in fear of Jack for years, and he told me he kept quiet that night because he was terrified of setting Jack off, not because he agreed with them. Then he dropped a bombshell. Despite being Jack's biological brother, he's felt just as much of an outsider in our family as I have. The constant pressure from our parents to cater to Jack's every whim has worn him down too. Liam assured me that he's always seen me as his brother, and that he regrets not standing up for me sooner. Hearing that was a huge relief, and he's completely on my side now, and we agreed that if Jack can't respect me as a brother, he has no place at my wedding or in our lives. But just when I thought things couldn't get any more intense, my parents decided to make everything worse. I sat them down and explained why I uninvited Jack, hoping they'd understand. Instead, they threw down an ultimatum. If Jack isn't invited, they're not coming to my wedding. No room for discussion, no empathy. Just flat-out refusal. I was gutted. After all these years of putting Jack's needs above mine, this is how they repay me? I couldn't hold it back anymore, and I let out all the anger and frustration I've been bottling up for years. And I told them how I've always been the one sacrificing, how they've always prioritized Jack, and that I was done being treated like I don't matter. I made it clear that if they chose not to come to my wedding, they're making their choice, and I'll make mine. With that, I walked out, leaving them to stew in their own decisions. And out of nowhere, Jack started bombarding me with the nastiest, most hurtful text messages I've ever received. He accused me of turning Liam against him, of ripping the family apart, and had the audacity to call me selfish for abandoning him. And he ranted on about how he never felt like he belonged in the family and how it's all my fault for pushing him away. His words hit hard, but they've also opened my eyes. Jack has spent his whole life blaming everyone else for his problems, and I've been his favorite scapegoat. This time, though, I'm not letting him guilt trip me. I didn't even respond. I just blocked his number. If he can't see what he's done wrong, then there's nothing more to say. Liam was livid when I told him about Jack's messages. He's more determined than ever to support me, and we've decided to go low contact with our parents until after the wedding. Liam's been a rock through all of this, helping me with the wedding plans and making sure I'm not dealing with this mess alone. So, the wedding is still happening, but with a much smaller guest list. My parents haven't reached out since our argument, and at this point, I don't care if they show up, I don't care if they don't. This day is about me and my fiancé, and I'm not letting anyone, not even my own family, ruin that day. Thank you again for all your support and advice. I'll keep you posted if anything else happens, though I'm really hoping my next update is just about how amazing the wedding was. Fingers crossed. Then in the comments section, one user said, "Make sure you have security to keep Jack from crashing the wedding." And then user 2 commented and said, "Well, you may look back in years to come and reflect that your parents' reaction should not have come as a surprise. That doesn't mean it won't hurt now and that it won't hurt in the future. And fair dues to Liam, though, and congratulations on having at least one family member who loves you." Update. August 25th. Hey everyone, I wanted to give an update after everything that's happened over the last week. A lot has changed, and I'm grateful to say that things are moving in a much better direction. 2 days after the text argument with Jack, he reached out to me. I wasn't sure what to expect when he asked if we could meet up, and I was reluctant, but I agreed. When we sat down, the first thing he did was apologize. He told me how sorry he was for what he said to my son, and admitted that he didn't know why he said it. Jack seemed genuinely remorseful, and I could tell that he really meant it. This wasn't just another apology to smooth things over. This was different, and it felt sincere. After apologizing, Jack took a deep breath and confessed something that I probably should have seen coming. He told me that he had relapsed before the argument even happened. Hearing that hit me hard, and it explained so much about his behavior in the weeks leading up to that moment. The irritability, the distance, the way he was withdrawing from everyone. I realized that I had missed all the signs, and I'm not proud to admit it, but I was so caught up in my frustrations with Jack's behavior in my wedding that I didn't stop to think that something deeper might be going on. Jack's confession wasn't just about the relapse, it was about taking responsibility in a way he's never done before. He went on to tell me that after realizing the damage he'd caused, he'd made the decision to check himself into treatment. This might sound like a typical step, but for Jack, it was monumental. In the past, Jack's only gone into treatment because he was either sectioned by social services and forced into it, or because my parents threatened to kick him out if he didn't get help. But this time, he made the decision on his own. That was something he'd never done before, and it showed me that he was serious about wanting to change. He told me that he is doing this because the prospects of losing me, his brother, was too much, and he couldn't handle it. He wanted to take this seriously because he wants to show me that he can do it. He told me he sees me as his family, and he feels so guilty for making me feel like I wasn't his family. Jack has also agreed to start taking medication to help calm his nerves, something he would never do before. It's now been about 5 or 6 days since Jack checked himself in for treatment, and I've been visiting him regularly. At first, I went alone because I wasn't sure how my son would react and feel about seeing Jack so soon after everything that happened. But after a few visits, I felt it was important for my son to see that Jack was making an effort to make things right. So I brought him along, and Jack took the opportunity to apologize to him directly. It was a really emotional moment for me as a parent. My son is still young and doesn't fully understand everything that's been going on, but he could see that Jack was sorry, and that seemed to make a difference to him. They even spent some time together, just talking and playing, and it felt like a big step forward for all of us. Throughout all of this, my brother Liam has been incredibly supportive. We've talked a lot about Jack, and it's clear that Liam wants to see him succeed just as much as I do. We both know Jack's trauma has affected him, and while it doesn't excuse his behavior, it does help us understand why that he struggled so much. Having Liam by my side through all of this has made me feel a lot less alone. Reflecting on everything, I've come to realize I need to take responsibility for my part in how things escalated. In the weeks leading up to the argument, Jack had been doing things that really got under my skin. Instead of addressing it calmly, I let my frustration build until it finally snapped. And looking back, I can see that his behaviors were likely tied to his relapse, and I should have seen that sooner. I feel guilty for not recognizing the signs and for reacting the way I did, but I'm trying to focus on what I can do to support Jack now that he's taking his recovery seriously. When I wrote my first 2 posts, I was in a place of deep frustration with Jack, and though nothing I said was incorrect or a lie, I definitely painted a picture of Jack's most negative moments without everything else. I want to remind everyone about Jack's trauma. Jack was a victim of severe abuse by his biological family, including extensive CSA. Liam also, but Jack's was a lot more intense. Jack jokes now that he was their biological's favorite in all the wrong ways, and Jack got into drugs at a pretty young age, but has been clean, or so I thought for a while. I mentioned this before, but Jack has told me in the past that even now, almost 20 years after he was adopted by her parents, there is not a day where he doesn't think/have nightmares about his abuse. He says the only moments of peace that he gets is when he's high. Jack's trauma runs deep, and it's something that continues to affect him every single day. I'm not making excuses for his actions, but I still think it's important to remember that he's dealing with a lot of pain. Despite everything, I still believe in Jack. I believe that he has the strength to overcome his past, and with Liam and me by his side, I'm hopeful that he can get through this. I also want to take a moment to thank everyone who offered advice and support on my last post. Your words helped me see things from a different perspective and gave me the push I needed to approach this situation with more compassion. There's still a long road ahead, but I'm optimistic that we're on the right path now. For now, things are looking up. Jack is trying his treatment seriously, and our family is slowly healing. We're taking things one day at a time, and I'm committed to supporting Jack as long as he's committed to helping himself. Thank you all again for your support, and your advice has been invaluable during this difficult time. Some of you may call me weak or naive for thinking this time it will be different, but I'm prepared to take that risk one more time for Jack. As he has shown me over the last week, he is genuinely wanting treatment and he wants to do better. Jack's told me he wants to earn back his invite, but to not give it to him yet. And he said he will prove he deserves it, and I really hope so. So this story did not end up going the way I thought it would. It ended in a much better way, I will say, but it's as if there's a triangle of overseeing and not being felt seen by the 3 brothers. OP felt like he was looking inwards on the relationship between Jack and Liam, but then Liam said he didn't really feel close and that he was also scared of Jack. And then Jack said he didn't feel like he was close and accepted, and then he relapsed and OP didn't catch that. So it's like this triangle of miscommunication and pent up emotions and stuff like that. Maybe I'm not wording it the best way, but you guys see what I'm trying to get at here. They're all feeling kind of similar things, but also different. They're all going through stuff that the other person isn't seeing. And also, the parents here, OP, I was suspicious ever since the start when OP kept mentioning, I was always there for Jack through his drug problems at the very start. And I'm like, okay, when is he going to mention what the parents did? I'm not saying they didn't do anything, but I don't know. The way they're portrayed and the lack of information we're getting on them leads me to at least a bad vibe city. I'm not making any conclusions, but I feel like if we got more info on them, it probably wouldn't be positive. That's just what I feel like. Anyway, you guys can disagree if you want. Next story. Story number 4. Am I the a-hole for considering breaking up with my fiance because he ran away when we were being attacked? My fiance 24M and I 24F have been dating for 6 years. He proposed to me a few months ago, which was the happiest moment of my life. We set our wedding date for this December. However, after what happened last night, I am seriously considering breaking up with my fiance, and I am unsure if I'm the a-hole. My fiance, my brother, and I were all walking back to our car from dinner at a nice restaurant. The car was parked pretty far away as the place was packed, so we walked quite some distance. It was late at night, and as we were walking, a person in a bike came to the side of us and stopped and demanded we give everything we had. My fiance panicked and just ran away. But my brother, after talking to the man for a couple of minutes, just attacked the man. And long story short, my brother beat him up. The man had no weapon. It was just a fake gun. I called my fiance after that and told him everything was fine and that we would pick him up. But my fiance still seemed a bit shaken. But I explained to him everything was all right, and my fiance thanked my brother a lot. Honestly, it just felt extremely weird and sort of disappointed that my fiance just ran away. I understand it was his natural instinct, but just seeing my brother take the attacker down, and in comparison to my fiance just running away, I just felt like I lost a lot of love for my fiance after last night. I spoke with my brother this morning to get his opinion, and he said I should still give my fiance a chance, and that my fiance loves me, and what happened last night is not a normal occurrence. However, I told him I just got a massive ick, and I don't think this ick will ever go. So, am I the a-hole? Update. August 19th. I have broken up with my fiance. I did it this quick because it was not fair to him or to me to keep this relationship just stringing along. Yes, I loved him a lot and will always cherish the memories I had with him, but after the incidents last night, I just don't have that same love for him anymore, and I don't think I ever will. To be clear, I don't blame him for what he did in running away. It was his natural instinct, and I completely understand that. But when my brother instinctively stepped in front of me to shield me from the attacker, in comparison to my fiance just running away scared, it pretty much evaporated most, if not all of my feelings for my fiance. I've just learned about myself that one of my love languages is safety and security. I let my fiance know, and I apologized. And I told him I don't blame him at all for what happened the previous night. My fiance was devastated, and he did cry a lot, but after some time, he understood my decision. I still feel really guilty about it because my fiance is a really kind and sweet man, but it wouldn't be fair to him if my heart wasn't in it. He deserves to be in a relationship with someone who loves him for who he is, and I deserve to find somebody who I wholly love. So, what do you guys think? Do you think that's reasonable or worth leaving a 6-year relationship over, or no? I think black and white, if you don't love your partner, you don't love your partner, but she discarded it pretty fast. She said, all right, it's not fair to him. I cherish our memories, but I'm not going to string him along. But also, there was no attempt to see if that could be salvaged or recovered, that love, or if they could talk it out or anything like that. She just said, I don't like what I saw, and my feelings towards you have changed. Goodbye. So, I can understand it, but also it's 6 years. We've had stories where sometimes there's the complete opposite, where there's a really long relationship and OP or the partner's like, okay, we've been together so damn long, I'm willing to give this a couple of tries. But that wasn't the case here. But I don't really have an opinion on this one. That's why I'm kind of curious what you guys think. If I was in OP's shoes, I would try and salvage it. But I don't know. I guess the icks are really powerful these days, so I don't know. Anyway, next story. Story number 5. I-28F found out my husband, 29M, has been telling his coworkers that I'm his sister. What do I do? Please help. My husband, I'll call him Josh, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4, and we don't have kids. We have a really healthy and communicative relationship, and we're both pretty easygoing, and I really love him. He started working at a large accounting firm about 3 years ago, and from what he tells me, he loves it there. He's made a lot of friends through his job, and he goes out with them for drinks and social events quite often, and I've been totally okay with that. I'm quite introverted, so I've never been interested in meeting his colleagues or work friends, nor have I asked to. I've got my own circle of friends, and I'm fine with us having separate friend groups. After what happened yesterday, though, it only just occurred to me that he has never actually asked me if I'd like to meet any of them or go to one of his work events, and I guess that's important context. Anyway, I'll start with what happened a few months ago that I had brushed off until now. I was at a bar with some friends for a couple of Friday after-work drinks, and a guy approached me. He was there with some friends too, and he looked slightly familiar, but I hadn't met him before, and he seemed friendly enough, and he asked me, "Hey, you're OP, right?" And I think I might have just given him a confused look because he followed up with, "I'm Jake, I work with Josh." And I realized that I recognized him from some photos on my husband's phone. I don't use social media except for a private Instagram, so I'm not sure if he posted the photos anywhere else, but we've got a very trusting relationship, so I look on his photos sometimes. Don't hate me. But this is where it gets a bit embarrassing. I'm a bit socially awkward, and so I struggled to end the conversation, but he just kept talking at me, and I guess he was already a couple of beers deep. But while he was talking, he said something like, "It's great that you guys are still so close. I haven't talked to my brother in ages." At the time, I was like, huh? But I just assumed he was drunk and not making sense, so I ignored it. He started to get a little flirty, so I turned to my friends, and we left shortly after that. I didn't say anything to them about it, and it didn't seem like a big deal to me. I also decided not to tell my husband that I had met his coworker, Jake. Not to hide it, but because I figured the guy wouldn't even remember talking to me, and I didn't want to make it awkward for Josh at work by telling him his colleague tried to hit on me. I just thought no harm, no foul. But yesterday morning, I was out walking our dog, Monty. He's a cross between a few breeds and has very unique markings. This matters, I promise. And I was on my way to my regular cafe, which is in town. I was waiting in line to order, and the guy in front was an older man. He got his coffee and turned around, but stopped and looked at my dog and goes, "Hello, Monty." And Monty was super excited to see him. Apparently, and so I guessed, that the guy was another colleague of Josh's, because Josh brings the dog to the office a couple of times a week. I thought it was sweet, to be honest, so I smiled at him and said hi, and he introduced introduced himself, and I guessed correctly that he was a colleague, but then he said something like, "Aren't you a good sister walking his dog for him?" I was so confused that I didn't even know how to react at first, so I stumbled on my words and just said, "It's my dog, and I regret it," but I genuinely couldn't bring myself to correct him and say that I'm Josh's wife and not his sister. It was just too awkward, and I just wanted to leave because I think it was suddenly dawning on me what might have been going on. He asked me something about sharing a dog, but I was able to escape the conversation by being next in line to order my coffee, and then he left. I seriously don't know what to do because what the F? Do I even ask my husband about this? Part of me is just assuming or hoping that it's a mistake, that he doesn't talk about me much at work, and they assume we are related because we both have brown hair, maybe? But the thought that he has been telling his coworkers that I'm his sister, and evidently they have seen what I look like, so they must have seen photos, makes my stomach churn. I don't even know how I would broach the subject with him. I need some help. What would you guys do in this situation? I have only told one friend what happened because it's so weird and embarrassing, and she has jumped straight to time to plot his downfall because she's my ride or die. I love her, but I don't want to immediately assume the worst or ruin my marriage over something that could be nothing. I'm sorry for the long and rambly post, but I would really appreciate any and all advice. Edit. Holy F, thank you everyone who commented with some advice. I haven't read all of them, but I really appreciate the suggestions from you guys. A small update. Josh came home at about 2:30 a.m. last night, but he was drunk, so he just went straight to sleep, which is fine by me because F having this conversation in that state. I've just woken up, but he's still sleeping. First thing I just want to clear up. I've seen a lot of people suggesting I have crippling social anxiety or I am severely introverted, which I suppose you could glean from the way I explained what happened, but I'm not. I meant that I'm slightly introverted in that I'm not the most eager to meet lots of new people at once, especially a bunch of finance bros whose weekends consist of unending sports bar beers where I assume I would be mansplained everything until my ears bleed. Probably a negative assumption, but I'm sure some of you know what I mean. I suppose you could say that I'm confrontation averse and that I'm quite laid back and prefer to keep a conversation easy and positive. I don't know. I don't like it when things are awkward, and correcting when people misrecognize me is one of those things, but I'm not terrified of confrontation. Also, my husband and I do share some mutual friends. I didn't explain that well, but our lives are not entirely separate. The way he acts towards me around our mutual friends is extremely affectionate and normal. It is only his work friends that I have never interacted with. I've also seen some people suggest that what is going on is equivalent to my husband beating me, and me hopelessly wondering whether I should break up with him, or that I'm stupid for thinking my relationship was healthy when it clearly isn't. Like, damn, cut me some slack. I'm a real person, and this is an entirely alien and bizarre situation for me. My first reaction wasn't to assume the worst, but I do appreciate that you all have made me certain that it is a big deal. I guess I needed confirmation that the things that happened are enough proof that Josh has been purposefully lying, and they weren't just mix-ups. I'm going to talk to him today and ask him directly why he's telling his coworkers that I'm his sister. I followed the advice of writing my points down so that they don't get lost if I get emotional, and I will do my best to not let him slither out of it, and I hope he has some proof that his colleagues know I'm his wife. I know that's not the theatrical confrontation you guys were hoping for, but it's a Saturday, and I can't wait. Wish me luck. Thank you all. Then in the comments section, OP provided more information and said, I didn't go into much detail about our relationship because it didn't seem relevant, but I meant it when I said we have had the healthiest and best relationship I've ever been in. I was friends with him for a year and a bit before we started dating. We met at university, and I've had crappy relationships before, and he truly blew me away when we started dating. He is genuinely the most empathetic, kind, intelligent man I have ever met. He remembers every little thing about me. He's so lovely to me every day and does little acts of service just to make my day better, and I would do anything for him. We are both really supportive of each other. We also have a great sex life, and we are intimate frequently, so I know he's not starved of it or anything, but that's why it's so hard for me to assume the worst because literally just earlier tonight, before he went out, he made me dinner and told me he loved me like he always does. Like, it just doesn't seem possible or real for him to be living some double life, you know? I can't even imagine it. As I'm typing it, it feels like I'm in a dream or talking about someone else. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, does he not wear a wedding ring to work? Why does he need to hide the fact that he's married? Sorry, OP, but this would send me into a tailspin. Find out as much as you can before confronting him. That's where I'm at right now. tail spinning, reading these comments and starting to think I'm stupid because it seems so obvious from an outside perspective. But I know him so well, and I'm just finding it so hard to fathom he would even do something like this. Then user 2 commented and said, I think you are underreacting here. There is literally no good reason he has told all of his coworkers that you are his sister. I am so sorry. You could choose for ask him why, or you could just leave. You're right. I think I was still in denial and hoping it was all a mix-up when I posted this. I still am a little. My husband is out right now, and I'm in bed, and my head is spinning, but I think I'll talk to him tomorrow. Then some user suggested to OP that she surprise her husband at his job and give him a kiss. To which OP said, I really wish I was the kind of person that could do this, but the thought of having everyone looking and judging me and laughing is just too much for me to handle. I don't even know them, and the thought is making me dizzy. But I think meeting him at work could be a good idea, just to see how he reacts. I just don't know if I can wait the whole weekend without talking to him about this. And finally, user 3 commented and said, So, he's either having an affair at work or keeping his options open. Neither are good. I'm starting to think you're right, but I still can't even wrap my head around that being possible. He's been just as present and loving as he always has. Nothing has changed. Update, August 18th. Hi everyone, I just wanted to say thank you for the overwhelming amount of support and advice. I'm blown away, and it really means a lot, and it has kept me grounded. I'm sorry for the slow update, and I know a lot of you were interested in what happened. I actually tried to update you on Saturday, but it turns out this subreddit doesn't allow me to post an update until 48 hours after my first post. I'm also only allowed to post one single update, so I'll try to fit as much as I can here. Sorry for how long it might end up getting, so I'll just get right into it. On Saturday morning, I woke up earlier than my husband. He was very hungover, so he was sleeping like a rock. But you guys will be proud of me because I followed some advice and decided to look through his phone properly while he was sleeping. I have been on his phone so often, just pissing around on it, that I had never thought to check anything very deeply. I know his passcode by heart. I checked all the expected things like Instagram DMs, Facebook Messenger, his iMessages, etc., and I didn't find anything that set off alarm bells to me. But I know from some comments that people who are cheating are good at covering their tracks and hiding messages, so I kept looking around. I saw he had a folder called Work, and so I looked in there, and he had a couple of Microsoft apps, Outlook, Authenticator, OneNote, etc., but he also had Microsoft Teams. So I opened that up and had a look around. It did feel like I might have been breaking laws looking at his work messages, but I obviously had to. Anyway, I was already upset to see that he had a bunch of one-on-one chats with several female coworkers, which at first glance is obviously not an issue, because everyone works with people of the opposite gender and are required to communicate with them. But a couple of them were vaguely flirty. Nothing I would call egregious, but there would be the occasional message between them with some playful innuendo or a wink emoji. These upset me, obviously, and they did send me into a bit of a spiral, but I didn't find anything that suggested he was having an out-and-out affair with any of them. Still, I followed someone's suggestion of screenshotting the messages, and I airdropped them to myself. I still wanted some evidence of the lie, though, some proof of Josh telling someone that I was his sister directly. A commenter suggested that I go through his messages and search for the keyword sister, so I searched for sis on his Microsoft Teams, hoping to find results for both sister and sis. A bunch of messages from all hands group chats or one-on-one chats came up from other people, all unrelated and about their own sisters or whatever, but my heart dropped out my ass when I saw there was a direct message from Jake, the guy from the bar, to Josh from Monday a few months ago. Jake's message said, "Ran into your sister at the bar on Friday. She's single, right?" And my husband had the effing gall to reply, "Nah, she's married." And I literally almost burst into flames on the spot when I saw that. I can't even describe how much I was shaking after reading those messages. Firstly, that I could have confronted Josh about this months ago. I was, and still am, so furious with myself for that. Josh would have been effing praying I didn't remember meeting Jake, or that I wouldn't mention it, and he would have been counting his lucky stars that I never did. He probably thought he was hot crap for getting away with that, and I nearly burnt a hole through the floor thinking about it. But secondly, I was just in shock that he had the balls to tell this guy that I'm the one who is married, because he doesn't want anyone having it on with me. But he is allowed to coyly flirt with every effing woman in the office? Anyway, I kept going back through the search results of his Microsoft Teams, and eventually I got as far back as 2-ish years ago, and I did in fact find a message from Josh himself to a group chat. It said, "Me and sis in Nusa Dua," and I clicked on that and saw that he had sent it alongside a bunch of photos of him and I from our holiday to Bali. We went to Bali for our 2nd anniversary. I thought he probably chose those photos because he's shirtless and had been working out, so he looked hot in all of them. And I was in tears seeing all of this, obviously. I took screenshots of those two and airdropped all of the screenshots to myself. Needless to say, I was devastated, and still am, to see all of that. I'm still struggling to even process it all. But that all happened on Saturday morning, and I immediately took myself to a friend's house. I'll call her Sophie. I went to her place to cry it out and show her what I found, and she was extremely supportive and probably more furious than me. At around 1:30 p.m., I got a phone call from Josh, and I hung up immediately. He sent me a few messages along the lines of, "Where are you, baby? I'm ordering food. Want some? Sad not to wake up next to you this morning." Guys, I have to reiterate how much I loved this man, and how effing heart-wrenching it was to still see him acting like nothing had gone wrong. It took so much willpower to not just pretend none of it had ever happened and go home to him. I know a lot of you will yell at me or accuse me of being terrified of confronting him about this, which is not true. Please have some empathy. It takes me time to process my emotions, and I wouldn't have even been able to form a sentence if I tried to confront him immediately after seeing those messages. I needed some time away with Sophie to recollect myself, and so I stayed the night at her place. She ordered us Chinese, and she helped me plan how I would confront him. I got a bunch more text messages and calls from him as the evening progressed, and I eventually put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Sunday morning, I woke up feeling more angry than sad, so I opened my phone and finally replied to his messages with, "Coming home now? Need to talk." I kept it cryptic to make him squirm, to be honest, because I was and am fraught with emotions, and I can't remember the entire conversation word for word, but I'll try to replay it as best as I can. Long story short, I got home and he tried to hug me, but I refused and we just stood in the kitchen. I did confront him like someone suggested, and I just said, "Why have you been telling your coworkers I'm your sister?" I wish it would have been more like a movie scene where the color drained from his face or he immediately looked like a deer in headlights, but he didn't. It was like he had been guarding himself for this confrontation for a while, because he just frowned at me and looked flabbergasted. He just said, "Huh?" This made me so angry. How are you going to pretend to be stupid after 3 years of lying? I basically said, "Don't play effing dumb. 2 of your coworkers have greeted me as your sister, and I have proof of you telling them. And I know you're pretending to be single." Essentially, I asked him what he had to say for himself, and he still played stupid. He became moderately defensive and just kept saying, "I don't know what you're talking about," or "Why would I lie about you?" And I cannot describe how furious I was at this point, but I was in tears. I always cry when I'm angry, so he was trying to confront me as if I was having some kind of irrational breakdown. And I showed him the screenshot of his message saying, "Me and sis," and I said something like, "You tell me." And then he just said, "I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm confused." And I got so angry that I left again and went back to Sophie's because it felt like a dead-end road. I didn't think I was going to get him to admit to anything, and I was just getting so furious and I couldn't continue. He was really upset and in tears, which to me was evidence that he knew he was lying, and he was going to have to come up with some explanation. At like 8:30ish, he called me again, and I did pick up. He basically asked for us to talk, and he said he had some things to say. So I went back to our apartment. He had written out a bunch of stuff on a piece of paper as if he had a prepared speech, and sat me down on the couch. He asked me not to say anything while he was explaining himself, and I'll write down the gist of what he said in bullet points. He started by apologizing relentlessly and admitting that he pretended to be stupid before because he couldn't immediately think of something to say for himself. Next, he said that immediately after he started at his job, he realized the atmosphere was like a frat house. All of his team members were men in their 20s and 30s that were single and F-boys, his word. And he noticed that one guy in their team that was married would either get picked on or essentially excluded from any and all social interactions. That included getting lunch, inside jokes, going out on Friday, etc. These guys were friendly and welcoming to Josh, and he admitted that he was desperate to fit in with them. He hated feeling like fresh meat, so he was scared that saying he was married would alienate him from his coworkers. And at first, he just never mentioned that he was married. He said he did wear his wedding ring and that they had just never pointed it out. Next, a few months in, they were all out drinking after work, and he admitted that after one of his workmates saw a picture of him and I on his lock screen, they asked him who I was, and in a moment of panic, he said, "My sister." And he was really apologetic at this point, and he was crying a lot. but he couldn't even look at me. He was just reading what he had written down. Anyway, after that, he said that from then, he basically dug himself a deeper and deeper grave because they kept grilling him about me and wanting to see more pictures of me. He said that he had let it go on too long and that he didn't have the balls to admit to the lie. They would always bring me up and ask crap like, "Did you give her my number yet?" or joke that they had slept with me, etc. So when he got the message from Jake, he essentially thought it was just him taking the piss, but he didn't like the jokes they were making about me and said that I was married in hopes that they would stop. They didn't. He said that this wasn't the first time he told them I was married. In fact, he said so pretty much immediately after saying I was his sister. Continuing, he said that those pictures of us in Nusa Dua were the only pictures that he had purposefully sent them and deliberately lied about, after he called an endless barrage of pestering from his colleagues to share the pictures from his holiday. He said he was really ashamed that he did that. Next, he told me that he had never had an affair or even considered it, that the messages between him and his female colleagues were banter, and that it was commonplace to talk to people like that in the office. He also said he knows how disgusting it is, and he is embarrassed to have been acting like an F-boy. Again, his word. And he concluded his speech by apologizing again and said that he was disgusted with himself and ashamed that he had lied for so long, but felt like he had trapped himself and that he couldn't find a way to get himself out of it. He said he knows he could have confessed the truth to either his coworkers or to me at any point, but that he didn't because he was a coward. He said that he'll confess to his entire office that he lied and that I am his wife and not his sister if I want him to. He said that he will quit his job without a word if it would make me feel better, and that he hopes I can forgive him, but he understands if I can't. Anyway, I couldn't really think of anything to say at that point. He went to lock himself in the bathroom, and I just sat on the couch crying. I still don't know if I can trust what he said, and a lie that extreme is just baffling to me. If he can lie like that for so long, what else could he be lying about? But his explanation and apologies seemed so sincere and genuine, and I guess to an extent, what he said is believable. He has always been very extroverted, but very susceptible to peer pressure, especially from other blokes. If nothing else, to me, it's a sign of shocking immaturity. Anyways, I packed up a bag and went back to Sophie's, and I'm still at her place as I'm writing this. She said I can stay as long as I need to, and I told Josh that I needed time away from him to think about everything, and whether or not I believe him, or whether I can ever trust him again. He told me to take as long as I needed, and that he will still be there if or when I get back. He said, even if it takes a year. Right now, nothing feels real. I'm still dealing with the emotional whiplash from all of this, and I can't keep food down or think about anything. I've taken the day off work, and Josh told me he's going to take off the whole week. Sophie and my other friends have told me not to make a decision on anything until my head is clear. I spoke to my parents this morning, and my mom said it's just a bump in the road, but she and my dad adore Josh, so they're pretty biased. That's where I'm at right now. I'll take some time before I consider my next steps, and I can't say whether I'm leaning towards forgiveness or divorce, but those are really the only options. I kind of feel lost in a void at the moment. That's probably the best way to describe it, just emptiness. But thanks again for all of your advice and support. I'm truly so grateful, and having this place to write down all of my thoughts has been helpful to get my mind a little bit clearer. This will be my last update unless I make an edit to clear things up. All the best. Then in the comment section, OP elaborated on if her husband wears his wedding ring when he is out with his colleagues and if they notice anything different about her husband. He said he hasn't taken his ring off and that people had pointed it out before, but he just managed to weasel his way out of explaining it. But he said people almost never noticed. I struggle to believe that, but I don't know. And thank you. That's how I feel too. From what he said, it sounded like it went unacknowledged because he never tried anything on with other women, but that's giving him a lot of grace. More grace than I'm willing to give him right now anyway. Then one user commented and said, having worked in the finance industry for years, 43F, there is definitely a more cliquey vibe than in some other industries. Being single and partying hard off hours is expected as you're coming up the ranks, and you definitely get picked on, singled out, and or passed over in favor of yes men and company men if you don't comply. That being said, your husband has no backbone. It takes an individual with a strong sense of self to march to the beat of their own drum when everyone else is doing something different. His inability to even admit that he was in a committed relationship is likely foreshadowing how he will be when times get tough. And they will get tough if you stay together. My recommendation is that he attends therapy on his own and you attend couples counseling together with a different therapist, but only if you want to do so. Your comment is really helpful to know. Thank you. This is really helpful to know. I don't work in finance. I work for a small creative company, so I have no clue about workplace culture in other industries. But yeah, I am pretty horrified that he was that weak-willed under the pressure of random men. If I can ever bring myself to forgive him, I would definitely force him to attend counseling. I knew he was easily peer pressured, but not to this extent. And finally, user 2 commented and said, "I'm so sorry you're going through this. What an absolute gut punch. When I read your first post, I was thinking there was a very good chance he didn't want to tell anyone he was married for this exact reason. It seems that fitting in and being liked by a bunch of frat bros was more important to him than honoring your marriage. Why does he care so much about going out and getting drunk with these dip craps? Shouldn't he be moving past that mentality? I suggest marriage counseling. He needs to figure out what drove him to live this life for 3 years. And I'm curious, how often does he come home drunk as he did?" He would often go for after-work drinks on Fridays. That's pretty standard where we live, so do I. But I shouldn't say that he doesn't regularly go out that late or get that drunk. Last Friday, it was a special occasion because it was his friend's birthday. But this friend wasn't one of his work friends. I knew the guys he was out with. So, I would like to say I did not subscribe to the fact that he was cheating at first or having an affair. I really did think, like that one comment mentioned, that like he got wormed into a lie. Like he dug himself into a hole. I really did think that. And I kept believing that until he pretended to be stupid. And then I was like, oh, maybe my theory wasn't right. But then he admitted it. And I was like, oh, we're so back. But then also I feel bad for OP. But on a more serious note, I believe him. I'm not saying I approve or disapprove of what he did, but like it seems pretty feasible to me. And like she said, he was very susceptible to peer pressure. And ultimately now, regardless of anyone else's opinions, it's just up to OP what she wants to do. But I really didn't think he cheated. I just wasn't getting that vibe. I'm not trying to mitigate anything or defend anything, but I just didn't feel like it, even though some people in the comments were like, well, it must be one or the other. And I was like, I don't know. Sometimes there's a third option. We've had the third option happen here sometimes. But anyway, whatever happens next is up to OP, and if the husband decides to accept her terms and conditions, if she does stay or not. Anyway, next story. Story number 6. A married dad from my daughter's swim club has sent me an unsolicited sexual picture. I went to report him to the club and tell his wife. So, at some point he asked for my number to arrange a swim meet, but he messaged me today, and however, what he sent me was an unsolicited sexual picture. When I asked him why he sent it, his response was, "Don't you want it?" And I want to report him to the club and tell his wife. I know not all guys do this kind of stuff, but it's happened to me a few times and I'm sick of it. I understand that the consequences would be crap for him, but surely he should have thought of that before doing it. I've already screenshotted it, so I have the proof. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "As a guy, report it. He deserves the consequences." Then user 2 commented and said, "He tried to F around, and maybe he should find out. Go for it." And finally, user 3 said, "You're not overreacting. Unsolicited sexual photos are just harassment. 100% tell his wife." Update, August 19th. So, a few people asked for an update. A married dad from my daughter's swim club sent me an unsolicited chicken picture, and I ended up telling his wife, the club, and the police. His wife is now considering leaving him because it isn't the first time he has done something like this. He has been suspended from the swim club, and his daughter and wife can still attend, but he can't. The police have created a report for the incident, and they will be interviewing him. I had to provide them with all the screenshots, and they said that it's enough proof to show that he did it, so there's no point in him denying it. Thank you all for your advice. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "Kudos for deciding to go through with the reporting. Guys like this need to be held accountable for their harassment. You're a star. Hopefully he will actually learn something from this and stop being such a sleaze." And finally, user 2 said, "I'm sorry this happened to you, but I give you much respect for reporting it. Since this wasn't the first time he has done something like this, there's a good chance he would do it again, and at least now he can't be around the swim club. Having consequences is important." Oh, this foolish man. Most people don't want wiener pics. Let's just be honest, they're kind of weird to look at. But you know what? If you do send them, it has to be consensual. She has to want them. Read the room, or maybe he wants them, okay? And you can't just whip that thing out immediately. You gotta anticipate and build up to revealing it. Put some commentary over it, or something like that, but just, bam, drop it on the desk, say, "Here you go, here's my wiener." No, it gets you nowhere. I will have a Netflix documentary called The Art of the Dick Pic, and it will be out soon, and it will be narrated by, I don't know yet. Anyway, next story. Story number 7. Am I the a-hole for putting a hidden camera in my office? I know this sounds bad, but please reserve judgment until you read my story. I, 35F, am a Moroccan living and working in the US. I work for a big corporation with worldwide locations. When I started working there was a colleague of mine, M37, who always made jokes about being in love with me, etc. I knew these weren't jokes, but just his way of telling me he was interested. I don't crap where I eat, so I just ignored it. He then started calling me his almond eye. I always corrected him and told him to call me by my name, and I told him if he wouldn't stop, I would call him banana nose. Listen, I don't know why I said that because his nose is normal, it's just something that came to mind. And he laughed it off, but he never called me that again. And since 2 months, we have a new colleague, M36. I was working from home the first 2 days that he started. When I met him, he was very distant, acted as if he didn't like me. And don't get me wrong, I'm a very nice person. So for me, this was weird, but I respected him and his space, so I didn't make an effort to see what was going on. Last week, I discovered he made a huge mistake. I can't go into details about what because you would guess the corporation, but it was a big one. Even though he acted like a jerk to me, I didn't want him to get into trouble, so I stayed in the office with him until past midnight to solve the issue. And I never reported it. But then when I got up to leave, he asked me to wait because he wanted to talk to me. He asked me why I hated him so much. My flabber was gasted. I asked him what he meant by that because, in my opinion, he was the ass. He started telling me the first day he got there that he was mentored by Banana Nose, and Banana Nose told him, "Watch out for her because she is Muslim and has told everyone over and over again that gay people should be banned." First, sir, I come from Morocco to work here. Who the hell am I to want to ban someone? Secondly, my religion teaches me to accept and respect everyone. The new guy went on to say that he had his doubts after tonight because I could have fed him to the wolves, but instead I helped him out. But then came the worst part. The new guy told me that Banana Nose goes into my office when I work from home and, get this, sits naked on my chair to punish me for being a prude. I asked the new guy to not tell anyone what he told me, and now I want to get a hidden camera and install it in my office. I want to ask first HR if it's not against office policy, but yeah, I definitely want to catch his ass. Literally. Would I be the a-hole if I did that? Update. Same day. Well, it is very nice meeting you all. I have never in my life read so many ideas to make someone's butt itch or hurt. The things we can achieve if we can work together. I spoke to HR, and I requested an urgent meeting. I didn't tell them everything because I know what they would do. They would investigate and then come back with, "It's just a rumor." Banana Nose is very loved, and I don't want to put the new guy in a bad place. So I told them I'm afraid someone might be sneaking into my office because all my stuff gets misplaced. Since I have a higher position at this company, they took it real serious, real fast. So, dear comfies, camera is in its place, and I will be working from home the next couple of days. Update number 2. Hey everyone, I guess thanks for being curious and creative. Before I get to the update, I would like to explain where my office is and how Banana Nose was able to do what he did. My office is at the end of the hall. The only room that's facing my office is a utility room/supply closet. We all have offices on the same floor, and with we, I mean the members of our team. I know it might seem naive of me, but I never questioned the new guy. I've never told him anything about how Banana Nose treats me and how he calls me a prude, so for him to make that leap seemed excessive. Now for the update. Today was my first day working from home since the cameras were placed. After working for a few hours, I got a call from HR to come to work. My heart was beating so fast, and I literally can't remember how I got there. The nerves were eating at me. I got to the HR department, which is one floor above us, and I noticed everyone staring at me. The head of the department was sitting in a room with a couple of other people. They started talking. I couldn't listen. Things like, "We as a company, blah, blah, blah." I stopped them and I said I couldn't bear listening to a TED Talk, and I wanted to know what was going on. Last night, when I already went home and the camera was installed for maybe an hour, Banana Nose entered my office. HR asked me if I wanted to see the video of it or if I just wanted them to explain what happened, as if it's a nature documentary, and I told them I definitely wanted to see the video. I will first start by saying what I saw objectively. Banana Nose entered my office and the door behind him was still open. He looked over his shoulder and it looked like he was talking to someone while taking his pants off. Then it happened. He sat on my chair, butt-ass naked. He took some candy from my desk and started dancing on my chair, rubbing his butt in my chair's DNA. I got sick to my stomach. He then took my pens one by one and licked them. It looked like he was still talking. There was no sound, so I wasn't sure. Then the worst thing happened. 2 years ago, I lost my 7-year-old niece to cancer. On my desk is a picture of her, and the last time we got to hug. So you can clearly see it's not only a child, but a sick one. This evil man rubbed his chicken all over my picture frame and laughed so hard. He took out his phone, made a call, and then left. I started crying like a baby. I feel violated. I feel used. I feel unsafe. HR guy was talking, but I didn't hear anything. I saw myself in the reflection of the window and I stopped. I wiped away my tears and asked what the next steps are, and HR said Banana Nose was asked to come in later and that they would fire him on the spot. It seemed to me like they thought that was enough for me. I told them firing him is step one. I wanted to know who he was talking to and demanded to see the security tapes for the hallway. You can't see into my office on these tapes, but I know for a fact you can see who was standing in the hall. HR accepted my request and asked security for the tapes. It takes some time, but they expect to get it sometime tomorrow. For now, I feel unsafe everywhere I go. When I got in my car, all I could think about was maybe he was in my car, maybe he was in my home. I know that sounds crazy, but I feel crazy. I will do my best to update all of you, but for now I don't know what I need yet. Thank you all. Update number 3. Hopefully, maybe my final update. First, I want to thank everyone. Your support and kind words helped me when I couldn't sleep. Having this feeling of being alone, may it come back to you to benefit your lives, each one of you. Now, I don't know where to start. Forgive my brain for giving up on me. It has been a lot. I have viewed the tapes and what I saw was, I don't know. It was clear he was talking to someone. I too thought it could be the new guy, but it wasn't. The new guy was seen on the tape at the beginning of the hall turning his back and leaving. Banana Nose was giving a show in my office for 4 of my co-workers. 1 male, 2 female. 2 of them I trained. All 3 of them I helped when they made many mistakes. They stood by the door while he danced and filmed him. One of the females started to fist pump. It was disgusting. Before going to HR to view the tape, I did my research. I read in my contract that when there is a conflict of serious nature that can't be solved, that it needs to be taken to the board for review and judgment. I knew that if I asked for them all to be fired, that it wouldn't be a problem, because like I said, many mistakes. So I came up with a different idea. I asked for a compensation from the firm and all parties involved of $1 million per person. I know, ridiculous. Ridiculous enough to get me in front of the board, to get them in front of the board. And I can't wait to show these tapes in front of 11 rich old men and 1 female, who all have a lot of influence in our field of business. But most of all, I can't wait to look them in the eye and ask them why. I know their answer wouldn't change anything, but it would give away who they truly are. Banana Nose isn't fired yet. When I got home after our meeting, HR guy told me they wanted to wait until they have the full story so nothing was unanswered. After today, I asked them not to fire him because the board meeting would be useless. And if he quits, he will lose all his benefits. So this way, he has little choice but to show up to the meeting where I will do my dance. I don't know if I'll stay at this company, even though I love to work here, because I can't believe that there is any way where it would be possible for new guy to know this info and all my other colleagues not. Yesterday, I drove to the new guy's house. I told him I never mentioned his name. I want him to have peace and not be afraid that other people will act out against him as some sort of vengeance. His secret is safe with me. Some people ask me what I would do if someone read this from work. Well, let me say it like this. I work with a bunch of nerds. Not the good kind that's on Reddit, but the bad kind that thinks TMZ is what keeps you up to date. They use words like whatever, and I bet you can picture them now. And if they do show up here and read all of this, so be it. I couldn't cope without all of you. I have no family here, and I thought my coworkers were my friends. I guess we all make mistakes. Again, thank you all for everything, and I kinda love you guys. Just make sure you never say, whatever. Update. The finale. Dear Comfies, an hour ago I got the news that everyone involved quit their job. They got their notice that they have to appear in front of the board, and they didn't want that. By everyone involved, I also mean one other person that was not on the tape, but knew of it and was involved on different occasions. This was something that happened frequently. When they first had to come to HR and watch the tapes, they said it was just a joke that got out of hand. One of them even tried to say that I knew of it. They wanted to first keep their job and asked for a group session to work things out. But when HR said there would be a board meeting, they resigned the next day. As for me, I handed in my notice, but this wasn't accepted. The company offered me a better paying job in a different location. They will help me with relocation and everything, and I'm glad that I got this chance. Since I have a more senior position, I need a well-rounded, trustworthy assistant. I asked for the new guy. They agreed with it, and the new guy was very excited. Our relocation is closer at his boyfriend's house, and I'm glad that I don't have to leave him behind at a toxic environment. I guess this is my final update. I decided not to sue. I don't ever want to think about what he did ever again, and I don't want to put my energy towards this kind of toxicity. And I know one thing for certain, you get what you give. Thank you all for your loving messages. I wish nothing but the best for all of you. Then in the comments section, one user said, "There's no both sides of the story for HR to get here. That video pretty much requires immediate termination. Either you have excellent grounds for a very big lawsuit, or this is a creative writing project." It wasn't about the both stories. He explained that he wanted to first know who was in the hallway so he would know if there were executives involved. I guess we never will know if there were. This definitely isn't a project or whatever. This is my life right now. I can't sleep, can't eat. I keep going over every interaction I've ever had with them, trying to think of something I could have done to deserve this. I have nightmares of Banana Nose poisoning my food or standing by my bed. Yesterday, I dreamt he was at my niece's grave, dancing on her. Thoughts like, maybe he did something to the brakes of my car, or maybe he is hiding somewhere in my house and it keeps popping up. It's crazy. It's crazy that I had a good life here. I was happy, I felt safe, and now everything changed. So, OP definitely has some sort of post-traumatic stress regarding what happened to her, and even though she wasn't physically involved, she can still feel violated. She went to her desk and sat down and used her pens, and he defiled a photo of her niece that she, loved so much. So it's understandable that she has feelings like this, and, the company offered to help her out with the transition. Maybe she needs to talk to them and see if they can help her out with, some counseling or something, because she definitely needs to talk to somebody about what's going on with her. She strikes me as a smart person, and she said she read all the comments, so I know for a fact some people in the comment section were recommending that she get some sort of counseling or something like that. I'm pretty positive Reddit did its thing there. But anyway, best of luck to her. Next story. Story number 8. My 24F best friend 23F did something horrible at a mutual family friend's wedding and blamed it on my younger sister 19F. I'm considering cutting ties with her, but I'm having a hard time. This is a bit of an unusual situation, but I'll try to explain it as best as I can. The story involves myself, 24F, my best friend Caroline, 23F, my younger sister Nicola, 19F, and our mutual friend/groomsman Daniel, 28M. I'm using real names because I know Caroline doesn't use Reddit. And if anyone who witnessed this happens to see this, I'd love for them to get the actual facts of the story. So, over the weekend, a very good family friend of both my family and Caroline's family was getting married. Caroline and I have been best friends for years. We met when we were toddlers. Our moms are best friends. Our sisters are friends, etc., etc. You get the picture. We know that both of our families would be invited to this wedding, and we were looking forward to it for months. It is important to note that Caroline's family and my family have a ton of mutual friends, and this was going to be a very large wedding. The guest count was in the 500s. Everything was going fine and dandy until Caroline got completely wasted. She kept talking to me about how hot one of the groomsmen, Daniel, was, and how she'd had a crush on him for years, but he showed no interest. This was probably because he was in a serious relationship and had been dating his current girlfriend for 6 years. The girlfriend decided not to attend this wedding because she didn't know the bride and groom very well, and because Daniel would be a groomsman, she wouldn't see him very much either. Fast forward a couple of hours, and Caroline is hanging all over Daniel. She's constantly asking him to dance with her, get her drinks from the open bar, etc. She point blank was throwing herself at him, and it was embarrassing and painful to watch. I tried intervening a couple of times to get her off of him, but she snapped at me, and at that point, I decided that it wasn't my problem. Furthermore, Daniel wasn't completely pushing her away. He looked like he had a few drinks in him as well, and seemed somewhat interested in Caroline. I decided that if he didn't care, I certainly wasn't going to. If he wanted to throw away his relationship, it was none of my concern. I tried. I didn't witness this next part, but by the end of the night, Caroline and Daniel were having sex in a different room of the hall. Yes, it escalated quickly, and to their misfortune, someone, I'm not sure who, just that it was someone's mom who knew Daniel and his girlfriend but didn't know Caroline, walked in on them, and for some reason, Caroline told this woman that she was Nicola, my sister. I don't know if she was embarrassed or drunk or what, but she purposefully identified herself as Nicola, so Caroline herself would not be in trouble. Word quickly spread that Daniel and Nicola were caught having sex, and Nicola was mortified. People were talking about how disrespectful, home-wrecking, rude, how much much of an S-word Nicola was. I honestly can't even blame them. Had I not known better, I would be thinking the same things. On top of that, Caroline had gone around actually telling other people that it was Nicola and confirming the rumor she started. The bride and groom were pissed. Everyone was talking badly about my sister, and Caroline seemed to not care. In fact, when I confronted her about the situation at the wedding, she straight up denied it. Had Daniel not confirmed that it was Caroline he was hooking up with and not Nicola, I might have even believed her. The next day, Caroline texted Nicola a half-hearted apology about the whole thing, saying she was so drunk and didn't know what she was doing. And the text included a lot of LOLs and ha-has, so I'm not sure how seriously Caroline is taking the situation. She doesn't seem to realize how mortified Nicola is. Nicola genuinely thinks that her life is ruined. We live in a very tight-knit community, and a lot of people have heard the false version of what went down. I'm at odds with what to do. Up until this point, Caroline had been a very good friend to both I and Nicola. I'm not sure if I can forgive her for this, especially considering her lack of consciousness about how bad the situation really is. Should I dump her? Or should I give her another chance? Our friendship will be different regardless. My family sees Caroline in a completely different light now, so even if I forgave her, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the same things we used to do. Hang out at my house, do things with my family, etc. What should I do, Reddit? Edit. At this point, a lot of people know it was Caroline with Daniel and not Nicola. However, I'm not sure how many is a lot. Our family friends know, but there were a lot of guests at the wedding who knew Caroline's family better than they did mine. I'm sure these people still think it was Nicola. Edit number 2. Another issue is that Nicola is also terrified of the potential ramifications from Daniel's current girlfriend. I have absolutely no updates on the situation with the girlfriend. I don't know her well, and I don't know what Daniel has chosen to share with her, if anything at all. Edit number 3, because a lot of people are asking me how I could even consider remaining friends with Caroline. Prior to this experience, she was honestly a great best friend. Of course, we've had our ups and downs like all friends do, but she has always been a kind and caring person, and I really valued our friendship. I've known her my whole life, and the evening at the wedding was very uncharacteristic of her, including her coming onto a man who was in a relationship. Throwing away a friendship with someone who you've been close with for 15 plus years is extremely difficult. However, I am prepared to do this if it's the right thing to do. Then in the comments section, one user said, "If Caroline wants to continue your friendship, she needs to make this right and tell everyone that she lied. If she doesn't, then I would personally cut ties. Being drunk is no excuse for what she did." I think Nicola needs to stand up for herself as well. She would be very clear with people that she would never have done something like that. Tell her not to let someone else ruin her reputation. If Caroline won't set the record straight, Nicola, you and your family can. Thanks for the suggestion. I haven't actually considered asking Caroline to go public and own up to the situation. I think I'll do this. I actually have no idea how she will react. Caroline is usually a decent moral person, but she also hates confrontation, so I wonder how she'll take that. My family and I have been trying to set the record straight, but it's really hard to undo a rumor that has been spread around by so many people, a lot of which we were not that close with, mostly because nobody actually wants to talk about it to us directly. Most of the talk goes on behind our backs, but of course, we know it's happening. Update, 6 days later. First, I wanted to give a huge thank you to everyone who responded. I definitely did not expect such a large amount of help and guidance from everyone. This community is awesome, and I really appreciate everyone's time and advice. I unfortunately could not respond to very many people's posts as I left the thread overnight, and once I woke up, it was locked, so I figured the least I could do is provide an update. So, about a week and a half ago, Caroline usually called me and asked me to sleep over. She wanted to attend an event downtown, and my place was much closer to the event than hers. At this point, it became very clear that Caroline had no idea anybody was upset with her, despite the fact that Nicola and I hadn't spoken with her since the wedding. I told Caroline that I didn't think her sleeping over was a good idea. And when she had asked why, I brought up what happened at the wedding. She laughed and said Nicola needed to grow up and get over it. And it really seemed like she expected me to agree and laugh along with her. Well, Reddit, I took your advice and I let her have it. I told her how selfish and inconsiderate she was, and if it truly was no big deal, then she should have no problem taking full responsibility for her actions and publicly acknowledging that she was the one who hooked up with Daniel, and not Nicola. I told her she needed to make things right because Nicola was still mortified over something she didn't do. At the end of the phone call, I gave her an ultimatum: post an apology to Facebook and spill the beans about what actually happened, or our friendship was over. Thanks to that one Redditor who suggested this, and to my complete and utter surprise, she did it. I thought it would make me feel better, but people were actually commenting on her Facebook status, commending her for bravery and the fact that she did the right thing. I was super annoyed because, of course, she never would have done this had I not forced her to. But at the end of the day, Nicola is happy and her name is in the clear. Oh, and an update on Daniel and his girlfriend. According to his Instagram, they are happily together. Whether or not she knows about Caroline, I don't know, and I don't care. Not my train wreck. Dang, okay. I wish, though, we would have gotten like 10% more of what happens next. But I guess we're gonna have to go Delulu fanfiction and come up with our own headcanon. Alright, so here's the imaginary tea. I think OP and Caroline tried to be friends, but then Caroline did something else again. Something that got under the nerve of Nicola, and then OP was like, okay, I'm done, I'm out, I'm gone. Then there was a little bit of Facebook drama, just a little bit, and then something happened with Daniel's girlfriend. Like, OP and her ran into each other at a store, since I'm getting small town vibes here. Then she figured out the truth. Then Daniel started coming at OP, accusing her of stuff. A police report was made. Nicola, she left town. I don't know why, but she just wanted to go. And Caroline, I think she got into a small bar fight and got arrested. And then after that, I think OP's like, I'm done, and I'm leaving town too. And then, the parents, I don't know, they moved to Florida. Anyway, next story. Story number 9. I overheard my girlfriend say she would leave me for someone taller. My girlfriend and I have been dating for almost 3 years. Last night, she had some friends over after she finished work. I work from home, so I only left my office to be formal and say hello and continued working. It was easy to hear the conversations they were having, even though my office is down the hall. I then heard my girlfriend mention that she would leave me for a taller man. Her friends made a comment on how I was a lot shorter than her ex-boyfriend, and my girlfriend responded, "If only he was as tall as my ex, he'd be 10 times better. If I could find someone taller than him, I would." I guess I should mention my girlfriend is barely 4'11" in shoes. I'm 5'9". The issue isn't the height, but the fact that she would leave me for something so trivial. I talked to her about it since, and she said she didn't mean anything by it, just that she always dated taller men. She has since apologized multiple times. Is this a red flag of any kind of things to come, or is it just me overthinking? Update. I left early in the morning to make sure I wasn't making irrational choices. When I came back, she was immediately apologetic, but I didn't want any more apologies. I talked to her about how little she respected me, for that she felt the need to make jokes at my expense. She started crying and begging not to break up and feeding me the standard BS people say that they don't want to break up. To not bore you with the details, I broke it off. I lose nothing at this point. I should clarify something for my initial post. I get that people can joke around and it doesn't mean anything, but when I confronted her about it, she denied it and got very defensive. That's the part that got to me. The fact that she tried to cover it up before apologizing. I read all of the comments, and thank you. Update. So, I read all the comments on my last post, and even after breaking up with my girlfriend, I was doubting if I made the right decision. I wasn't going to update because I didn't see a reason to do it. But after the last couple of days, I came to a final conclusion. I went to clarify that I broke up with my girlfriend because of how easy it was for her to disrespect me behind my back, not because of the actual height difference. After I broke up with her, she continued to apologize to me. She would send me letters and call me a lot. In one of the texts I actually responded to, she asked if we could meet up and talk. Without going into much detail, she wanted a second chance and overall sounded very remorseful. I was about to agree, but something she said made me realize I would be making a mistake if I did. She said, "I'll remember to respect you from now on." And that sentence made me realize that I made the right choice by breaking up. Since when do you have to be reminded to have the bare minimum of respect for your partner? Either way, I'm glad I didn't give her a second chance. I don't know if any of you care at this point, but there's the update. On a side note, the other day I was hanging out with one of my female friends who happens to be taller, and I guess my ex saw us, and she started texting me that she doesn't need me. And then she started saying that my friend was a pig and that I moved on too fast. I blocked her and had a laugh of it, because I know for a fact I made the right choice. She wants a man who's taller, but she's 4'11" in shoes. OP could punt her by accident. If she wanted to make a point to him, she would have to get up on a stool to look at him at eye level. But she wanted someone even taller than that. Disgusting. You know what she wants? She wants piggyback rides. That's what she wants. She wants to wake up every morning and say to her man, "Oh, how's the weather up there?" And then they laugh at it until it's no longer funny anymore. Well, you know what? I'm not laughing anymore. It's not funny, man. And you know what? Maybe he's not tall enough, but you're too short. That's a new one. I bet you haven't heard that before. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway, next story. Story number 10. My husband, 32M, is convinced I, 26F, am pregnant. I'm not, but he won't believe me. What do I do? I am truly at a loss here. This situation has gotten worrying, and I don't know what to do with it. Since about a week, my husband has been convinced I am pregnant. I have no idea why, because I'm not. We haven't even started trying, though we do have plans in the future. We were just making conversation, and yeah, I did mention feeling tired, but that's all. A few hours later, he just came in so excited. I told him I'm not pregnant, but he won't let it go. He has made remarks about how happy he is, what a wonderful mother I'll be, what our baby will be like. Not all the time, but it has come up multiple times a day. I told him I'm not. I even took a test because even I started wondering, and it was undoubtedly negative. I showed it to him and he just got annoyed and said tests can be wrong, and he didn't speak to me for the rest of the evening. The next morning, he acted as if nothing happened. When I tell him I'm not, he just kind of shuts me out. I lost my crap yesterday when we were in bed and he puts his hand on my stomach, and I told him he's acting crazy. I'm not pregnant and his behavior is scaring me. He went to sleep in the guest room after that and left for work early in the morning. I haven't seen him or spoken to him today. I am just at a loss. I don't know where this obsession is coming from. I even asked him if I gained weight, if that's what's gotten him confused. He assured me I didn't. I'm thinking of contacting his parents, or maybe a therapist or something. I honestly don't understand what's happening, and I'm worried about my husband. Edit. Next day. Thank you all for the replies. I didn't expect all of this. It's been overwhelming, and I'm incredibly grateful. He's asleep next to me right now, and I keep going through all the comments. My husband is one of the kindest people I've ever met. I promise you all that he's not trying to manipulate me or would do anything to harm me, but that does make me believe something is really wrong. I'll contact Mai and his parents in the morning once he's left for work. Maybe go stay with my mom for a bit, though I hate the idea of leaving him like this. I also definitely will make an appointment with my doctor for a blood test. Thank you all for the advice. Then in the comment section, one user said that this could be a delusion and that delusions can become violent, to which OP said, "Man, this reply hit me hard. I appreciate it a lot. I'm very torn. I love my husband very much and I am worried about him right now, but I feel increasingly uncomfortable at home as well." Then one user commented and said, "The whole phantom pregnancy thing usually only affects women, but one supposes a guy could have it too. Obviously, as time goes on and you don't produce a bump or a baby, he'll recognize that you're not pregnant. But this probably isn't some profound mental illness on his part, just the fervid wish that you could both start working on becoming parents soon. Maybe talk to him about your timeline. At 32, he's probably just more in the ready to be a dad phase of life than you are in the ready to be a mom phase at 26. So remind him that you've still got time." I will try to do that. It just feels like such a weird response to wanting a child. Then user 2 replied and said, "This is not an urgent enough response to what seems like a pretty serious delusion. This behavior isn't normal or explicable in reasonable terms." That's fair. It is very unlike him. I might call my mom, ask her if I can stay with them for a bit, if only to get all of this sorted. I just want him to snap out of it. I miss my husband as I know him. Then user 3 commented and said, "Would he harm you if he thought you got an abortion? Because that's a possibility. He may accuse you of having an abortion if you get medical confirmation that you're not pregnant after he's decided that you are." I'll be honest, I hadn't even thought of that. Sorry, but thanks for your reply. And finally, user 4 commented and said, "The first time I got pregnant, my husband knew before I did. He had a feeling. Home test said negative, but a blood test showed positive." Oh my, that's wild. Either way, I will meet with my gynecologist, if only to have some conclusive proof that I'm not pregnant. Mini update. Well, things escalated yesterday, but I'm with my mom and his parents are at our place. Update. 2 days later. Hi everyone, I hope it's okay I post this update. I really appreciate everyone asking if I'm safe, and I am. I wish I could give clear answers, but I can't. Things escalated when I tried to speak to him. Keeping some of y'all's advice in mind, I sat him down and explained to him that I'd love to have kids with him in the future, but that I'm not pregnant right now, and that his insistence worries and scares me. I told him we could go to the doctor together if that would put his mind at ease, or I could take another test in front of him. I was just hoping that would snap him out of it somehow. And he got very agitated and said many hurtful things and accused me of being a liar many times, that I'm trying to keep our baby away from him and so on. Nothing made sense and I wasn't feeling safe anymore. I knew my husband would never harm me in any way, but that wasn't my husband. Things got worse, and he did hurt me, but nothing permanent or even emergency care worthy. I also know that if he was in his right mind, he never would have done anything like this. I called mine and his parents, and now I'm staying with my mom. He did seem to calm down a bit when his parents arrived. I haven't seen or spoken to him since then, and his mother, she's an angel, is keeping me posted about everything. We all agree something is very off about him, and we don't know what it is, but he hasn't agreed to getting himself checked out in any way. I don't know how they'll go about it, but they say, and I painfully have to agree, that it's best to keep my distance for a bit, as most of it is aimed at me. But I'm safe, and so is he. But I miss him so much, and I just want an answer as to why he's being like this. I keep trying to figure out if there were signs before this, or if I did something wrong. Thank you all for the replies, though. They were a great help, and it's so kind that you cared to ask if I was safe. Then in the comments section, one user said, "Let's pray it is not drugs, since he refuses to get checked out. And I'm so sorry, OP. I hope everything gets better soon. I don't know if going back to him is a good idea, though. He physically hurt you." I do think that whatever is causing this is the reason he hurt me. We've been together for some years now, and he's never even raised his voice at me up until this. Edit. Thanks, everyone. I've been reading all the comments, and you guys are all so kind to me. But I'm scared crapless about what it could be, reading everyone's experiences. Edit 2 days later. He has apparently agreed to get himself checked out, but I haven't heard anything else. Update. 10 days later. He's in the hospital now. Many people were right about it being a medical issue. I'll get more into it at some point, maybe, but I first need to see what's going to happen with him. I've seen him a couple of times, and sometimes he's his normal self, and then sometimes he can't stand the sight of me. We're managing somehow. Update 1 day later. I don't know if anyone will see this here, but you've all been so kind to keep asking whether or not we're okay. I hope I'll reach you like this, and I'm going to keep this short, but my husband has a brain tumor. A lot of people commented this, and I feel an immense amount of guilt that I hadn't considered it until then. All of the headaches and other symptoms, in hindsight, we had previously dismissed because of his stressful work situation, and so on, and I'm beating myself up that I hadn't seen it before. A wonderful team of neurosurgeons, oncologists, and other physicians are figuring out the best approach here, if there is one. We'll hear more in the next few days. I've spent more time with my husband, though. Some moments he is his amazing self, others he's filled with anger. It's been difficult, but we're managing. I wouldn't have been able to without the support of friends and family, though. I love my husband, and this situation is terrifying. In moments of clarity, he's trying to make me laugh, so I don't worry. That's who he is. Thank you to everyone for pushing me to get him checked out. Then OP provided more information in the comments section and said, "I am home now, but my husband's still in the hospital." Then one user commented and said, "In his moments of clarity, does he recognize how he's been acting, or is there always some level of reality distortion?" He seems mostly very confused, if that makes any sense. He has apologized, but his mind is just not working with him right now. And finally, user 2 commented and said, "OP, this is not the first time I've seen a thread on Reddit where a brain tumor caused significant behavior changes. I hope the surgeons are able to remove it and your husband's previous personality comes back. Have the doctors given you any info on what to expect after the tumor has been removed?" Right now, it's the question of if it can be removed. There's a lot we don't know right now, but the doctors and nurses have been incredibly kind. Story number 11. Am I the a-hole for telling my 23F boyfriend, 24M, that it's his fault if he misses our flight and that I will continue without him? My boyfriend and I, we planned a trip for the end of the summer months ago. Last night, we were still trying to decide how we'd get to the airport when my mom told me that she could take us before work. I told my boyfriend, who lives 30 minutes from my house, to be at my house no later than 6 a.m., for my mother to drive us to the airport at 6:15. He promised that he would be there around 5:45. This morning, he was nowhere to be seen or heard from until around 6:20. He told me that his phone fell and he didn't hear it. By then, my mom had to leave and take just me or she'd be late to work. I told him that he should drive to the airport or get an Uber. His mom decides that she will drive him an hour to the airport, since he was too late for my mom to take us. He gets to the airport a little after me and I check in our bags. We get to the bag drop and he realizes he does not have his ID. His wallet is at his house, which is about an hour from the airport. I tell him that I'm going to continue to TSA and go to the gate. His mom is going back to get his wallet, which will obviously take a while. I tell him I'm getting on the flight regardless and that if he misses it, then it's a result of his own mishaps. He then begins to ask me what to do if he misses it. I tell him that he's an adult and should figure out a way to make it to our destination by contacting customer service. And I planned everything for the trip down to the flights and travel arrangements. I feel like at this point, I've done all I can do to ensure a successful and smooth trip, and I don't feel as if it's my responsibility to do damage control for him if he misses the flight. Also, there was no refund for the Airbnb that we split the price for if we don't go. So, am I the a-hole for continuing without him? Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Is he like this in other aspects of life? Honestly, it sounds exhausting. If so, some time alone will help you gain some perspective. Enjoy your trip alone or otherwise." He is often late, which is why I told him an earlier time specifically to avoid that. I called him endlessly, and he didn't wake up until way after the time we agreed upon. His mom had to go to him and wake him up. I told her that I was going to leave without him, and she said he was up late. So was I, and I already told him that I was getting exhausted of planning literally everything, and that I want him to begin to take some charge and responsibility, and then this happens. Then user 2 commented and said, "Sounds like maybe he should go on a trip with his mom instead, since she's so willing to put up with this crap." This is a pattern that I've noticed from her repeatedly. It's definitely making me reconsider some things now. Then user 3 said, "It feels like you are mothering him since you need to keep on calling him to wake up and keep up with the itinerary for the trip. Does he always need to keep on relying on you or other people to remind him?" He has overslept and been late for different things on multiple occasions. He does work hard and used to work night shifts, so I let it slide. But he did not work yesterday and took a nap during the day. For context, I didn't take a nap, did errands all day, and stayed up late for online classes. Still woke up on time. Then some users told OP to just board the plane, to which she said, "I am going to board it." When we were checking our bags, he asked me how to put the bag tag on. At that point, I was over it and already decided I am taking this vacation, with him or not. He's actually leaving for Marine boot camp on September 3rd, which is why he planned the trip. Then OP provided more information and said, "I have ADHD as well, so I understand. I'll forget where I put a hair clip that's in my hair. I tell him to set multiple alarms all the time, and he has an Apple Watch that's never charged." And here's another problem. He doesn't really advocate for himself. He has struggled with mental health issues and refused to go to therapy. He has cystic acne and only this year saw a dermatologist because I called around places in our state until I found someone that would schedule an appointment. Then user 4 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. And please update us as to whether or not he made the flight." He's currently asking me the gate number, which I already told him, and I told him to download the app and gave him the confirmation number. He told me to stop making it harder for him. Then user 5 said, "Did you reply to him saying stop making it harder for me?" No, I did not. I put my phone on airplane mode as the pilot directed. Then user 6 said, how do I say this gently? What are his redeeming qualities?" He's very kind, loving, respectful, and will provide just about anything morally or materially that I need. But I'm considering whether that's enough now. Then user 7 commented and said, "Hey OP, did he make the plane?" Nope, he's coming later tonight on another one. I was also really beginning to enjoy the idea of going alone. And finally, user 8 said, "Best part of this story was you saying my boyfriend, not my fiance. Keep him if you want, but how long do you want to give him until he grows up?" That is very true. We've been discussing marriage for a while. We were supposed to be on the trip together for 5 days, and he's arriving later, and I don't want to sour the rest of the time. But once we return, I will make an important decision. Small update, 16 hours later. Well, he's here. I told him I don't want to talk about it tonight. Update next day. There are no bad vibes currently. We had a conversation and he agreed with my concerns. Update 4 days later. This is long but asked for. I think the trip, despite the mishaps and the conclusion that I'm going to come to at the end of this note, was eye-opening for me, and I'm grateful for it. I have had a track record of misjudging and misinterpreting behaviors, and I promised myself that it wouldn't happen again, so I set my boundaries early. The trip began with him oversleeping, and therefore not meeting me at my house to carpool to the airport. Not a heinous act in of itself, but something that has happened multiple times on different occasions. Once he finally awoke and met me at the airport, late, he discovered that he did not have his wallet. the most important thing to have when traveling. Wondering how someone could forget something so essential, but I waited for him to look for it to no avail. He called his mother, blaming her for rushing him in the morning and not taking any accountability, and this could have been avoided by him being a responsible adult and waking up on time and preparing his things the night before. Luckily, she came to his rescue, but not soon enough. He had to rebook his flight and arrived later that day. In the process, still asking me what gate number the flight was, while the gate number was displayed on a screenshot that he sent me, instead of us using the information that I spoon-fed to him. I organized the entire trip, down to transportation, flight, accommodations, and more. I gave him a small ball to carry, and he still dropped it. In the process of dropping that ball, he failed to take accountability for his actions, and I should have known how the rest of the trip would go. During the trip, there were multiple instances that solidified the feelings that were already looming. Outbursts of anger that were followed by childlike behavior and excuses. When confronted, there were only excuses and a lack of accountability, all followed by, "But I'm trying so hard," or "What am I doing wrong?" despite the issue being directly explained. He lost his debit card, and despite my efforts in tracing his steps, calling businesses we visited, and everything, he stormed off ahead of me in rage, leaving me behind, walking alone on the street. When I explained why that bothered me and was unacceptable, here came more excuses and rambling about how he didn't mean for it to happen. But still, he did it. While walking to different restaurants, he cussed at men who'd even look at me, stare them down, and almost cause a scene. He misplaced his wallet before dinner and acted in the same rageful manner, cussing, slamming things, throwing items around instead of calmly looking for his wallet. I sat there in disbelief, as this behavior had not been something I had seen before. I told him this was unattractive and demonstrated a lack of control and emotional maturity. More excuses. There are probably more examples that I could use, but they are fleeing my mind. It's the night before departure, and I'm in tears. It started at the beach. We decided to take a night swim, and all was well until he lost his ring in the ocean. Luckily, I was right next to him, so I was able to quickly use my hands and grab it. He got out to put it in the sand, smart, right? And once we were done, he got upset that I sent his mom a video of him dancing. I walked away because I didn't want to hear it. He then called me back to tell me that he lost his ring in the sand. We look for the ring, and by we, I mean me on my hands and knees and him walking around with the flashlight, and I finally found it. We begin to walk back to the room, and I say to him, "Can I say something serious? I'm beginning to feel like your mother sometimes, keeping track of your things and helping you do damage control." And he responds with a lot. How I didn't have to help him. How I don't acknowledge everything he's been doing, like calling Ubers and paying for things. How I'm not like his mom, and how he didn't ask me to do anything. In anger, I tell him F you and walk away. Yes, I know this is unkind, and I did apologize for my behavior later. And I walk to the room alone, and he begs me to talk to him when he gets there, and I don't want to. I shower and tell him one thing. This trip has really made me reconsider whether I want to be in the relationship. And he goes berserk, begging me please to talk to him, saying that I don't acknowledge all the good he's doing, on and on. I tell him that I don't wish to have the conversation, don't wish to be touched, and want to be left alone. Here, I also apologize for my rude words without making any excuses, and he tells me that I'm always rude. Prior to dating, I did use harsh words when he showed up to my house unexpectedly, and demonstrated other signs of emotional immaturity and ignored my wishes. But anyway, he begins to try and hug me, and I tell him get off of me, and he continues to touch me as I try to lay down in the bed, trying to hug and hold my hand, and here I break down into tears. I run to the bathroom and begin to sob. I come out as he's continuously crying and begging me to talk to him, and he begins to raise his voice and make a scene, and I run to grab the pull-out bed from the closet to sleep on. He blocks me and pushes the bed, telling me I don't need it. I get increasingly agitated because I'm being blocked, and I tell him to move out of my way and leave me alone. He doesn't, and he protests by sitting on the pull-out bed. I rip the comforter off of the actual bed and make a bed on the floor, and he takes the blanket and pillows from under me, saying he won't let me sleep on the floor, and he continues to yell in my ear for me to get up, that he loves me, to put everything behind us, while he keeps pulling the pillow that I reclaimed. He has finally left me alone on the floor, and now I'm leaving for the airport in 3 hours. Then in the comment section, OP clarifies and said, "I was thinking about changing my flight, honestly. I am still trying to figure out the logistics of a breakup, like how and when that could happen." Then OP talked about checking other flights and said, "The flight we have is the earliest of that day. There are others but no confirmed seats, only standby." Then one user commented and said, "That's only going to escalate into future arguments. Get home safe, please, and never see this man again." It's concerning because the type of rage that was ignited in me is a type that has only come out with past exes. Being concerned and my personal space violated is something I just cannot do at all. I will say that I did try to push him out of the way, and maybe I shouldn't have, and raised my voice because I was afraid that his yelling would get us kicked out. Our reservation has a quiet hours policy. Then some users told OP to get the hell out of where she's staying, to which OP said, I was thinking about this. The Airbnb is under my name, and I already know that I can't really trust him with following the closing procedures, so I'm worried about incurring a fee if he leaves something incomplete. Also, if I get up now, I know he will try to prevent me from leaving. Then user 2 said, you had every right to express your anger and frustration. Women are raised from girlhood to be nice and get along and keep the peace. The time for that is over. It's now F this crap time. Stop being nice, be blunt, be rude if you have to. You need to get him the hell away from you, and you need to never believe his sniveling, I am trying bullcrap again. I told him F you earlier when I told him that I felt like I was his mom, and he said, you didn't have to help me look for the ring, I just asked for help. And he said I was rude and that he would never speak to me like that, and that his friends tell him to leave me because of how rude I always am to him. He also called me rude because I left to the room and had the key, and he had to get someone else to let him in. Then user 3 said, if you feel unsafe, OP, record a future conversation and send it to his mom. I just thought of this hours later. Although I do feel like it would not change anything. When he walked away from me the other day, I told her, and she told me to just be happy with him and be in love and work things out. She makes excuses for him constantly. Then user 4 commented and said, when I read your first post, I was concerned. He sounded like a teenage gamer, but during the holiday, he was very aggressive. Time to get out. Just block him on everything. And also, his mother has enabled his behavior for his entire life. She knows what he's like. Yeah, there was an instance recently when we went to a soccer game where he was aggressive. He had drinks and some guy was bumping into him. I was sober and believed it wasn't intentional. I witnessed the entire thing, but he swore the guy was bumping into him on purpose. It was a crowded game and we were exciting and everyone was touching someone. He began to heavily body check the guy back with extreme force, and he went to the bathroom and the guy came up to me and told me that my boyfriend is going to meet the wrong person one day. So embarrassing. I should have audio taped and I feel stupid now. However, I feel like she would definitely make an excuse for him nonetheless. Then user 5 said, why did you start dating someone who couldn't be respectful even before you were dating? My boyfriend wasn't like this before. The aggression is something I haven't witnessed. Then user 6 said, I meant the showing up unexpectedly and ignoring your wishes part. What got past the red flags and into this? I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just trying to understand. I guess the apologies and giving the benefit of the doubt. I do like to give a first and even second chance. I am not perfect and don't expect my partners to be. He apologized for the previous behavior and made certain strides in areas, but obviously not the ones that matter the most. And finally, user 7 said, serious question, is he an alcoholic? I dated one, and on a mini vacation he acted just like this, a petulant child. Or has he just weaponized immaturity? In the past, he has used alcohol to self-medicate and deal with emotions. On one instance, his mom had to drive to his Apple location and found him drunk, asleep in a car outside a friend's house when he promised her he'd be home soon. I'm not sure if the frequency or amount of his drinking would warrant a formal diagnosis of alcoholism, but both of his parents had issues with alcohol during his entire childhood. His mom says that he always gets like that when he drinks as well. We don't drink together often as a couple, but when we do, this has never happened before. We've just gone to clubs and had fun. Small update hours later. I am at the airport now. When I left, he was asleep. He hasn't messaged me or read my texts, and his location isn't moving, so I'm assuming he's still asleep. Boarding in 10 minutes. Update. Several hours later. I left for the airport alone. When I left, he was asleep. When I boarded the plane, he texted me saying that I should have woken him up so that he didn't miss the flight. He said that I should have at least woken him up because apparently his phone was on silent. Then OP made another comment and said, he actually overslept because I left while he was sleeping to get to the airport. He missed the flight. I sent him a text explaining everything and did let him know to not come to my house or I will call the police. Update. Hours later. Thank you, everybody. He is currently texting my mom long paragraphs trying to explain his behavior. I told her to ignore him. And yes, I broke up with him via text message. New update. Hey, everybody. Thanks for your support. We did break up, and he is leaving in a week. I did break up with him via text message, and I told him to not contact my parents or come to our home. He did both the next day, texting my mom and leaving flowers at my doorstep. He is continuously telling me that he will seek therapy and that I am the only woman for him who he still loves. And finally, to clarify on a few things, I finished the cleanup tasks before I left and while he was asleep. And about his job, since some people were asking, he was fired twice for tardiness from Walmart and a warehouse. And finally, about his mother. His mother actually told him that he should move on and find someone who doesn't fight with him all the time. I told her initially that his behavior was abusive, and she agreed that he sounded like his dad. Her ex-husband, physically, sexually, verbally, emotionally abusive, and I told her that I wouldn't even consider him in the future unless he sought therapy, and that I had concerns about him passing boot camp. She told me that therapy makes your brain sick and that he should find someone who believes in him. So, everybody, when was the part that you realized, oh, this is not ending with them staying together? I think for me it was, let me see. I think for me it was around the point when she replied to the first comment and she said, he's often late, and she was trying to avoid that. And, he stayed up late the night before and, all that stuff. And I was like, oh boy, I have a feeling I know where this is going. And then eventually it just became undeniable that this was going to end with them breaking up. Like, unless OP was stupider than her boyfriend, and she sounds like she has a decent head on her shoulders, so that clearly wasn't the case. Bro is just a man-child, and mom is enabling that. Probably due to trauma, because like she mentioned, the ex's mom went through the ringer with the ex-husband. So I'm not harping on the lady, but I'm not denying the fact that she is not doing her son any favors. Because therapy makes your brain sick. Oh my goodness, that's like, she's the complete opposite of me. How many times a video do I recommend therapy? I've been toning it down a little, but she is my nemesis, okay? So I got beef with this lady, okay? But anyway, guys, we are at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching the long videos. I know you guys love them. But anyway, I love you, your face, your kneecaps, your elbows could use a little lotion, but I still like you and your face. But anyway, thanks for watching. Have a really good day, and bye-bye!